Chapter 407. Han Jianxing's mustache covered his mouth as he spat out a few words. Level 2 Desolate Hunter? Although he didn't show any emotions on his face, he was still a little surprised. The last time he saw Mo Shi was only a level 5 Desolate Hunter. In just half a year, he had already become a level 2 Desolate Hunter. This speed could be considered heaven-defying. However, Han Jianxing was just a little surprised. He was also a prodigy and had seen all sorts of situations. Before his wife was killed, he was also a monster who could rise several levels in a year. However, after taking revenge for his wife, he didn't have the heart to continue cultivating. Therefore, his strength had been stagnant all these years. However, even if he didn't cultivate much, his strength had slowly risen from a level 1 Great Desolate Hunter to a level 2 Great Desolate Hunter. Many people couldn't reach the level of a Great Desolate Hunter, even if they worked hard for their whole lives. Many Great Desolate Hunters didn't cultivate much, but they could rise by 1 level in 10 years. This showed the importance of talent. If he worked harder, he would probably be a level 7 or 8 Great Desolate Hunter. In another 10 years, he would be at the top of the continent. However, this wasn't what he wanted. Mo Shi nodded to Han Jianxing. Yes. I just advanced. Han Jianxing nodded slightly. Ignoring Mo Shi, he turned around and entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Stepping on his giant sword, he quickly disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. After Han Jianxing was completely gone, the heavenly gold sect disciples turned around and looked at Mo Shi. However, when they looked at Mo Shi, their attitudes had undergone a 180-degree change. Little brother, you know Senior Han? Mo Shi nodded. Yes. The heavenly gold sect disciples looked at each other and cupped their hands to Mo Shi. Little brother, sorry about just now. If we knew you knew Senior Han, we wouldn't have stopped you. If you want to go to the ancient dragon battlefield, you can go any time. Mo Shi sneered in his heart. These so-called righteous sects bullied the weak and feared the strong, and curried favor with those in power. However, he couldn't be bothered to care about this now. With Happy in tow, he walked straight into the great dragon's ancient battlefield. Behind him, the heavenly gold sect disciples continued to speak. Little brother, it's very dangerous inside. You must be careful. Especially the north. You can't go there. Mo Shi's heart skipped a beat. He had seen the map of the ancient dragon battlefield before. Almost every place in the entire ancient dragon battlefield was clearly marked on the map. There were also signs indicating what dangers there might be. However, there was only the north side. There was no topography drawn, nor was there any indication of the dangers there. There were only 4 words written on it. Not confirmed yet. It seemed that there was indeed something in the north. Mo Shi had already plundered the memories of the heavenly gold sect disciples. However, the disciples of the heavenly gold sect could not recall what was in the north. Obviously, they didn't know either. Mo Shi could only stay away from the north for the time being. According to the map, the ancient dragon battlefield was divided into 5 zones according to the danger level. Zone 1 was the least dangerous zone, while Zone 5 was the most dangerous zone. The area of the 5th district was the entire northern region. Based on Mo Shi's character in the past, he would definitely go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. But now that Mo Shi had evolved into a bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he wasn't as cautious as before. Hence, he was more adventurous. He even looked forward to the adventure. Hence, he did not go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. Instead, he went straight to Zone 2, which was the closest to him. According to the map, Zone 2 should be one of the battlefields during the Great Ancient Dragon War. Since it was more dangerous here, Mo Shi let Happy enter the micro-world first. Then he flapped his wings and arrived at Zone 2. It was the ruins of a huge city. It could be vaguely seen that this city used to be extremely large. It probably occupied an area of hundreds of square kilometers. Moreover, the buildings in the city were all tall and large. Obviously, this was not a city for humans to live in. Mo Shi guessed that it might have been built by the ancient dragon race to live in this city. However, this huge city was completely destroyed during the war. Now, only ruins were left, and green vines were crawling all over them. On the surface, there was nothing here other than broken boulders, collapsed stone pillars, and collapsed stone walls. However, over the past few hundred years, Many people had obtained useful things from the ancient dragon battlefield. For example, dragon scales that could be used to forge armor, dragon teeth and dragon claws that could be used to forge weapons. There were even people who obtained sealed dragon blood and used it to modify their bloodline, increasing their realm and combat strength in an extremely short period of time. Mo Shi's dragons will spread out and carefully investigated the area with a radius of 350 kilometers. However, he did not find anything. Mo Shi was not discouraged at all. What he cared about was not these things. As long as he came here to sign in, he would be able to obtain a lot of good things. System, sign in. In his mind, the system's voice immediately replied frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, Ancient Dragon Battlefield Zone 2. Sign in reward, Dragon Slaying Saber. Pfft. Mo Shi almost spat out. Even the Dragon Slaying Saber came out? System, do you want to give me another heavenly sword? However, speaking of the Dragon Slaying Saber, Mo Shi's mind immediately conjured up a scene of him wearing a set of dazzling armor, carrying a dazzling golden saber on his shoulder, and a pair of incomparably gorgeous wings on his back. At the same time, there was a hidden message. As soon as you go online, you will be given a dragon slaying saber. 1/ for 99999999999, and each slash will drop a piece of top-grade equipment. Mo Shi couldn't help but smile. Then, he checked the system backpack. Then he saw a saber. However, this saber was not golden or shiny. It looked like an ordinary saber. There were no decorations or patterns. Even the handle of the saber was wrapped in black cloth. It felt like the pig slaughtering knife that Mo Shi had seen in the village when he was young. However, this saber had one characteristic, and that was that it was big. The saber was more than 2 meters long. It was about a foot wide. If it was an ordinary person, it would probably be difficult for them to pick it up. Using such a saber, it was naturally impossible to have an infinite number of slashes and drop godly equipment with each slash. On the saber, there were the attributes of the saber frowny-faced dragon-slaying saber, forged by the cold body of the demon's den, soaked in the egg liquid of the dragon-devouring worm. It can cause huge damage to the body of the dragon race, the energy body of the dragon race, and the soul of the dragon race. Mo Shi looked at these 2 lines of words and was secretly surprised. Not only could this dragon-slaying saber hurt the body of the dragon race, but it could also cause huge damage to the energy body of the dragon race and the soul of the dragon race. This was awesome. Chapter 408. The dragon-slaying saber was awesome, but Mo Shi felt that things were developing in a strange direction. He was a dragon, but the system gave him a dragon-slaying saber. Did he have to kill himself? Forget it, he would keep the dragon-slaying saber first. Then, Mo Shi continued to fly forward. During the day, there seemed to be nothing in the ancient dragon battlefield other than the ruins of the ancient city and the green vines. However, Mo Shi guessed that there might be monsters like the ones in the forest outside at night. After searching for more than half an hour, Mo Shi finally found a few people. They should be from the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. Although the Skygold sect occupied the ancient dragon battlefield, the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect were from the same sect as the Skygold sect. Therefore, the disciples of these 2 sects could enter and leave the ancient dragon battlefield as they wished. At this moment, the disciples of the 3 sects were walking and stopping. They looked around from time to time or used their dragon psyche to investigate. They seemed to be looking for something. Mo Shi casually plundered the memories of a few of them and quickly understood what was going on. These people were looking for a wild beast called the Spirit-Engulfing Beast. The Spirit-Engulfing Beast loved to devour souls that were already dead but had yet to dissipate their psyche. The disciples of the 3 sects found a cave in the second zone. Using their psyche, they discovered that there might be some good things left behind by the ancient dragon era. However, there were also powerful dragon spirits inside, which were the souls of the dragon clan guarding it. There was a level 2 spiritual psyche master with them. However, the spiritual psyche master's psyche was slightly weaker than the dragon spirits. Therefore, they seemed to be looking for the spirit-engulfing beast to suppress the dragon spirits. Therefore, they planned to capture a spirit-engulfing beast to deal with the dragon spirits in the cave. Mo Shi had planned to go to the cave directly to look for the dragon spirits. If he devoured the dragon spirits, his spiritual psyche would increase again. However, he also wanted to see what the spirit-engulfing beast was. Therefore, He stopped and waited for the spirit-engulfing beast to appear. About 5 hours later, one of the spiritualists suddenly whispered, "The soul-devouring beasts have appeared. Everyone, hide." The rest of them were hiding in the surrounding ruins. A moment later, a small thing about 30 centimeters long appeared. When Wuxia saw this little thing, he was speechless. What the hell was this spirit-devouring beast? Wasn't it just a cat? It was a cat covered in black fur. From head to toe, there wasn't a single strand of stray hair. Under the sunlight, its black fur exuded a black luster, like black brocade. It looked around for a moment, then continued to jump forward. Its speed didn't seem to be fast, no different from an ordinary stray cat. Wuxia activated the blood dragon's eye and looked over. Species, spirit-devouring beast. Level 1 mutated dire beast. Ability, devour spirit bodies, extremely effective against spirit bodies. It was indeed a spirit-devouring beast. This was very different from what Wuxia had imagined. At this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast didn't seem to know that there was danger nearby. It was like a lazy cat that had just eaten and was about to go bask in the sun. Step by step it slowly approached. Just as it entered the encirclement, the heavenly gold sect disciples pounced at it at the same time. Each of them threw a large net at the spirit-engulfing beast. However, at this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast suddenly rolled to the side like a lazy donkey. It dodged the attacks of the few people. Then, it suddenly turned around and dug up a handful of sand with its back claws. The few people behind it were about to chase after it, but they were stopped by the sand. They all cursed. "What a cunning beast!" As they spoke, they continued to chase after the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast leaped past another level 5 desolate hunter and extended its right claw. Whoosh! It left 3 deep claw marks on the level 5 desolate hunter's face. Each mark was so deep that bone could be seen. Then, the spirit-engulfing beast turned into a black shadow and leaped away. It was a stark contrast to its lazy behavior just now. Wuxia couldn't help but be surprised by the spirit-engulfing beast's reaction speed. This little thing looked like a cat, but its reaction speed was much faster than a cat's. The few people who had surrounded it were all level 5 desolate hunters. However, the spirit-engulfing beast had managed to escape. The desolate hunter whose claw was scratched covered the deep wound on his face and wiped the blood off his face. He was furious and cursed, "Damn it, I'm going to kill you." As he spoke, he condensed an energy weapon. Whoosh! A thick red and white beam of light shot out from the desolate hunter's energy weapon. Boom! A huge crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared in front of the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was shocked and quickly fled in another direction. Seeing this, the rest of the people quickly advised, "Are you crazy? We're here to catch it, not kill it. If you kill it, how are we going to go to the catacombs?" The desolate hunter seemed to be an impatient person. He cursed, "I've had enough. If we don't kill it, it's going to kill us all. We've been here for more than 20 days to catch this beast. Even if I kill it today, I won't let it escape." As he spoke, he attacked the spirit-engulfing beast again. Whoosh, boom! A huge crater appeared where the spirit-engulfing beast was. However, the spirit-engulfing beast jumped away again. The desolate hunter seemed to have gone crazy. "Damn it, die!" Boom, 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 boom. Beams of energy shot out continuously. Huge craters appeared one after another. The spirit-engulfing beast seemed to have nowhere to run. It could only run forward. It ran a big circle around the desolate hunters. The desolate hunter, on the other hand, used his energy to create a big circle. This large circle of craters was connected together. From the air, it looked like a string of pearls strung together. It was at this moment. Boom! The ground suddenly shook. To be precise, the ground inside the string of pearls was shaking. Then, boom! Suddenly, a 20-meter-tall magma pillar spurted out of a large crater. Then, pillars of magma spewed out from the rest of the pits as well. Boom, 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 boom. There were more than 50 lava pillars surrounding the desolate hunters. It was as if there were more than 50 fountains surrounding the desolate hunters. However, these fountains were not spewing water. Instead, they were spewing hot lava pillars. Moreover, the lava pillars were getting thicker with every passing second. At first, it was only about a meter tall. In just 3 seconds, It had grown to more than 5 meters thick. The desolate hunters who were surrounded by the lava pillars were shocked. Chapter 409. The pillars of fire around them shot up dozens of meters high and became thicker and thicker. The scorching hot lava fell to the ground. The hunters' faces changed drastically when they saw this. He hurriedly condensed an energy light shield to block the falling lava. But at that moment, as the pillars of fire grew thicker and thicker, the ground in the center began to shake and collapse. Those people hurriedly tried to fly in all directions. But when they looked up, they saw that the pillars of fire around them had joined together to form a circular wall of fire that completely surrounded them. The ground continued to collapse. Below them was the boiling lava. There was also a large amount of lava falling from above. There was no way for them to escape. Finally, after a series of screams, the ground under their feet completely collapsed. They had already activated their hoverboards. However, the scorching lava that kept falling from the sky kept smashing down on their energy shields. Although the defensive power of their energy shields wasn't bad, under the intense heat, their energy consumption was also extremely fast. Soon, their energy shields became thinner and thinner. Finally they cracked and shattered. The 4 of them were smashed into the lava below by the lava that fell from above their heads. They died without a complete corpse. Not even a speck of dust remained. After doing all this, the spirit-devouring beast stuck out its tongue and licked its paws. Then, it used its paws to wash its face. Then, it continued to move forward leisurely. Xianxia was astonished when he saw this. This spirit-devouring beast was really smart. It was only a level 2 mutated dire beast, but it had relied on its understanding of the terrain and its cunning to kill the 4 level 5 hunters. It was rare to see such a smart mutant wild beast. If he could tame this spirit-devouring beast, it might be of use in the future. At that moment, due to the collapse of the ground, the wall of fire was quickly decreasing. Xianxia checked the spirit-devouring beast's location. He teleported to the front of the spirit-devouring beast. Xianxia suddenly appeared in front of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast was shocked. It turned around and tried to escape. Xianxia immediately used his dragon will to suppress the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was instantly immobilized. It looked at Xianxia, its eyes filled with fear and surprise. Xianxia reached out to pick up the spirit-engulfing beast. But at that moment, the spirit-devouring beast's claws suddenly shot out. He reached out to grab Xianxia's hand. Xianxia was also shocked and quickly retracted his hand. The spirit-engulfing beast took the opportunity to turn around and flee. With a single leap, he was already more than 20 meters away. Xianxia was a little surprised. The spirit-devouring beast wasn't afraid of his dragon will. Moreover, this guy was too cunning. He clearly wasn't afraid of his dragon will, but he still pretended to be suppressed by it and didn't move at all. When he let down his guard, it suddenly attacked him. Although this fellow's level was low, and his strength was weak, but it was definitely not to be underestimated. At this moment, just as it was about to escape, Xianxia once again teleported in front of it. But at this moment, he felt the ground beneath his feet become empty. He was actually falling down. It turned out that there was a 5-meter-wide pipe under his feet. It was just that it was previously covered by a thick layer of vines. Logically speaking, even if there was nothing at the bottom, Xianxia should have been able to detect it with his dragon will. But he couldn't detect it. It seemed that this ancient dragon battlefield was indeed very strange and dangerous. Fortunately, Xianxia didn't retract his blood dragon wings. He flapped his wings and flew out of the pipe. He floated in the air, looking down at the spirit-engulfing beast that was fleeing on the ground. He wanted to steal its memory and see what it was afraid of. But he realized that he couldn't steal its memory at all. It turned out that this guy was the nemesis of soul and telekinesis. Any telekinesis or soul skills were ineffective against it. Even if Xianxia's dragon will was 10 times or 100 times stronger, it still wouldn't have any effect on it. Xianxia frowned slightly. Could it be that he couldn't even deal with this little thing? Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. In the next moment, the long way on his body suddenly spread out. At the same time, he opened his mouth. He let out a long but domineering dragon roar. Roar. This dragon roar wasn't one of Xianxia's skills, nor was it a sound that Xianxia imitated. It was a real dragon roar. He had now become a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. Naturally, he could let out a dragon roar. Even if he was in human form, he could still let out a dragon roar without any hindrance. This dragon roar spread over a radius of tens of kilometers. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect were all shocked when they heard this dragon roar. This was the ancient dragon battlefield, and the souls of those giant dragons would often let out dragon roars at night. But this was the first time that a dragon roar had suddenly appeared in broad daylight. Could it be that the souls of those giant dragons could already come out in broad daylight? Below Mo, the spirit-engulfing beast heard this dragon roar and immediately prostrated on the ground subconsciously. In addition, Mo's long way had spread out. The spirit-engulfing beast felt the fear that came from the bottom of its heart and began to tremble. At first, it didn't even dare to raise its head. After a while, it slowly raised its head and looked at Mo. It saw that there was still a human in the sky, not a giant dragon. The spirit-engulfing beast was puzzled. Could it be that it was hallucinating? But then again it made sense. Giant dragons had been extinct for millions of years. How could a giant dragon appear here again? But the chill that came from the bottom of its heart still made it afraid to run away. At this moment, Mo lowered his altitude. He asked, "Are you willing to submit to me?" Although he wasn't sure if this little guy could speak or if it could understand his words, but with such a high IQ, it should be able to understand. As expected, after Mo finished speaking, the spirit-engulfing beast's eyes rolled a few times. It seemed to hesitate for a moment before it nodded. Then, it lowered its head and prostrated on the ground, as if it was surrendering. However, Mo saw that this guy didn't look very obedient. He immediately warned it. "If you dare to betray me, I have 100 ways to destroy you." As he said that, he waved his right hand. A blast of cold air instantly spread out. It covered a radius of several kilometers. Even the magma that had just appeared on the ground was directly frozen. A thick layer of ice appeared on top of the magma. This was a skill that Mo had acquired a long time ago, the Black Ice Dragon Breath. But because of the lack of energy in his body, he had never used it. Now that he had transformed into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, the energy in his body was much more abundant than that of an ordinary desolate hunter. That was why he dared to use it. When he was in his dragon form, he directly breathed out cold air from his mouth. When he was in his human form, he released cold air from his hands. Chapter 4:10. Although Mo had tamed the spirit-engulfing beast, he knew that it was not sincere. It was just afraid of his tyrannical power, and had submitted to him temporarily. However, Mo was not worried at all. As he said, although the spirit-engulfing beast was cunning, Mo had the memory plunder skill. Furthermore, it wasn't just once, but an unlimited number of times. Therefore, Mo only needed to plunder its memory once to know what it was up to. Therefore, Mo was not worried at all. He brought the spirit-engulfing beast and flew toward the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. In a short while, he arrived at the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. On the ground, between the green vines, there was a hole that only one person could enter at a time. Mo used his dragon will to probe, but he could not find anything. There were about 50 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect, Skywood Trisect, and Skywater Trisect guarding the cave. Mo also sensed that there were more than 200 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect searching for the spirit-engulfing beast within a radius of 350 kilometers. Mo looked at the spirit-engulfing beast that was panting after chasing him. He could not help but feel a little satisfied. Soon he was above the cave. Around the catacombs, the 30-odd Celestial Gold Trisect disciples had also discovered Mo. At first, they were wary of Mo. However, someone soon recognized Mo. "Isn't this the guy who is related to Han Jianxing?" Hearing that, a few people turned on their multifunction watches. When the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect at the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield saw that Mo. was related to Han Jianxing, they had already sent Mo's image to all the disciples of the metal, wood, and water sects. They warned the disciples of the other 3 sects to avoid conflict with this person. Soon, the other disciples compared Mo's image with the person in person and nodded. "Yes, that's him. What is he doing here? Did he discover the cave too?" While they were talking, Someone discovered the spirit-engulfing beast. Damn, it's the spirit-engulfing beast. So many people have been searching for him for days, but to no avail. I didn't expect him to be here. Everyone, surround it from all sides. Don't let it escape. Everyone decided to take action. At this moment, Wuxia slowly descended from the sky. The spirit-devouring beast had long since discovered the intentions of the heavenly gold 3 sects. It hurriedly came to Wuxia's side and rubbed its body against Wuxia's leg. Meow. The people from the celestial gold trisect exchanged glances when they saw this. Was this his? According to their usual style of doing things, they would naturally come up with a good excuse to claim the spirit-engulfing beast as their own. But not today. This spirit-engulfing beast belonged to this guy. If they were to offend this guy, it would be the same as offending Han Jianxing. Even though the celestial gold, celestial wood, and celestial water sects were the top 3 sects in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, they would never want to provoke Han Jianxing. Moreover, they had yet to find out what treasures were in the catacombs. It would be unwise to provoke such a powerful being for a catacombs that they had yet to explore. However, they were unwilling to give up on the catacombs just like that. Therefore, the leader of the Celestial Gold sect disciples, a middle-aged man in his 50s, asked, "Young man, this catacombs was discovered by the Celestial Gold sect, Celestial Wood sect, and Celestial Water sect. We have been guarding here for 3 days, but we haven't found a spirit-devouring beast that can restrain a dragon's soul. Since you have a spirit-devouring beast, why don't we work together and enter the catacombs together? If we find anything, we'll each take half. What do you think?" The 3 sects were afraid of Han Jianxing's reputation, so they agreed to take half with Wuxia. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, the spirit-devouring beast would have been taken away. Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said, "That's great." Wuxia's thought was that they had yet to find out what was in the catacombs. If he went down rashly, it would be very dangerous. On the other hand, with these cannon fodders, he could save a lot of trouble. As for taking half with both sides, it was naturally impossible. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine. How could Wuxia share it with others? The disciples of the Celestial Gold sect, Celestial Wood sect, and Celestial Water sect all heaved a sigh of relief. The Celestial Gold sect disciple in his 50s acted as if he knew Wuxia well. He laughed and said, "Brother, it's our honor to work with you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Chang Baishan, a 3rd-generation disciple of the Celestial Gold sect. Young man, you seem to be on good terms with Senior Han Jianxing." Obviously, this guy wanted to use words to trick Wuxia and figure out the relationship between Wuxia and Han Jianxing. If their relationship was not as good as they thought, they would have nothing to worry about. Wuxia heard him and said indifferently, "We just know each other." It was an understatement, but the other party could not figure it out. Chang Baishan was secretly surprised. This kid looked young and harmless, but in fact, he was very shrewd. He seemed to inadvertently turn around and give the people behind him a signal to be more vigilant. Then he turned back to Wuxia and laughed. "We wanted to know Senior Han, but we didn't have the chance. Brother, it's really enviable that you know Senior Han. Next, let's discuss how to explore the catacombs. What do you think?" Wuxia nodded. "Very good." Next, they discussed for about an hour about how to lock themselves up. In the end, they decided that Wuxia would take the spirit-engulfing beast and 30 people would protect Wuxia and the spirit-engulfing beast. They would enter the catacombs first. Wuxia did not have any objections. He put the spirit-engulfing beast into the catacombs first, then jumped in himself. The other 30 people followed in one after another. Chang Baishan sent a message to the 200 or so Celestial Gold sect disciples nearby to guard the catacombs and prevent other dangers from approaching. Wuxia entered the cellar and used his dragon will to explore. He saw that the catacombs were connected in all directions. There were dozens of holes that led to all directions. Each tunnel was about 2 meters in diameter. Wuxia did not find anything special in these maps. He led the spirit-engulfing beast and walked slowly along one of the tunnels. The 30 or so people behind him followed Wuxia, moving forward cautiously. After walking less than 20 meters, Wuxia sensed a powerful dragon will coming toward him. This dragon will was not just one, but hundreds and thousands of dragon wills gathered together. It was so huge that even Mo Shi felt scared. Although Mo Shi's dragon will devouring skill could theoretically ignore the strength of the opponent's dragon will. However, this was not just a simple dragon will, but a huge dragon will that was mixed with the soul of a giant dragon. Chapter 4:11. There was a difference between a dragon spirit and a dragon will. A dragon will was a pure giant dragon's telekinesis, or a pure giant dragon's soul. But a dragon spirit was a dragon will that contained a huge amount of energy. So Mo Shi couldn't use dragon will to devour these dragon spirits directly. Those huge dragon spirits were coming towards Mo Shi and the others from the depths of the cave. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect beside Mo Shi all changed their expressions. Especially their level 1 spiritual psychic, who was much more sensitive to dragon will than ordinary people. So he was even more frightened. Soon, that huge dragon spirit had already rushed out from the depths of the cave. Mo Shi and the others looked forward. In the dark cave, a faint blue light suddenly appeared and filled the entire cave, rushing towards them like a flood. This was a dragon spirit formed by a mixture of dragon will and energy. And this wasn't the dragon spirit of one giant dragon, but the dragon spirits of hundreds and thousands of giant dragons. It swept away everything in its way, rushing towards Mo Shi and the others like breaking dried weeds and rotten wood. It was as if it wanted to tear them all to pieces in an instant. At this moment, none of them could escape. They didn't even have time to use the wormhole teleportation device. Of course, except for Mo Shi. Mo Shi could teleport out of the cave. But it wasn't necessary. When the enormous dragon spirit, which almost filled the entire cave, rushed towards Mo Shi and the others, Mo Shi and the others were shocked. While everyone else's eyes were filled with fear, the spirit-devouring beast beside Mo Shi's eyes were shining with excitement. It suddenly opened its huge mouth, and a dozen snake-like tentacles came out of its mouth. These tentacles instantly became thicker and longer. At the tip of each tentacle was a bloody mouth. These big mouths opened one after another and tried to devour the dragon spirit. Roar! 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 Suddenly, a dozen roars came from within the dragon spirit. If it was an ordinary person, they would think that the dragon spirit was about to show its power. But Mo Shi, who had become a bloodthirsty demon dragon, clearly knew that the dragon spirit was afraid. They wanted to turn around and escape. But it was too late. More than a dozen mouths suddenly stretched forward. He divided the dragon spirit into a dozen portions and ate them. Those dragon spirits struggled to escape, but those huge mouths seemed to have an extremely strong suction force that sucked those dragon spirits in. Cries of agony continued to ring out from these huge mouths. In the next instant, all of the tentacles returned to the spirit-engulfing beast's mouth. The spirit-engulfing beast burped in satisfaction. Meow. Then, it licked its lips, licked its claws, and continued forward. Everyone behind him, including Mo Shi, exclaimed in their hearts. They only knew that the spirit-engulfing beasts were the bane of dragon spirits, but they didn't think that they would be so effective. In their opinion, these dragon spirits were so powerful that they didn't even have the thought of attacking. However, in front of the spirit-engulfing beast, it was as easy as swallowing a mouthful. The disciples of the Heavenly Metal sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect looked at each other, secretly delighted. With the help of the spirit-engulfing beasts, they no longer had to worry about the dragon spirit in the cave. Next, they continued to move forward. Along the way, they encountered another 3 dragon spirits. In the end, all of them were swallowed by the spirit-engulfing beast. Mo Shi was shocked. Just how big was the spirit-engulfing beast's body? Not only could it store so many dragon spirits, but it could also store so much dragon spirit energy. However, Mo Shi soon discovered something. After the spirit-engulfing beast swallowed the dragon spirits, it didn't store all of them in its body. Instead, there seemed to be some kind of space in its body. All of the dragon spirits had entered that space. Most of the dragon spirits' energy had also entered that space, leaving only a small portion to nourish the spirit-engulfing beast's body. This reminded Mo Shi of the spirit-engulfing beast in the Marvel movies he had seen in his previous life. The spirit-engulfing beast and the spirit-engulfing beast had the same effect. In other words, this was the author's idea to copy the spirit-engulfing beast. Of course, the author could also shamelessly say that this was a tribute. Next, they continued to go deeper into the cave. There were many forks in the cave. In the beginning, They had to discuss which path to take when they reached a fork. However, as more and more forks appeared, they couldn't be bothered to discuss any further. Most of the time they just randomly picked a path or went down whichever path they liked. Tiny claw marks could be seen on every fork in the road. There must have been some kind of creature living here in the past. It was most likely a young dragon. After wandering around the forks for more than 2 hours, they still didn't find anything. Mo Shi and the spirit-engulfing beast would occasionally use their telekinesis to probe deeper into the cave. However, they would always be hindered by the powerful telekinesis of the dragon spirits. They didn't know how many dragon spirits there were in this cave. Mo Shi suddenly had an idea in his mind. After the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the telekinesis of the dragon spirits, it stored them in the space inside its body. Was there a way to make it spit out the dragon spirits for him to devour in the future? However, this was not the time to think about this. They continued to explore the cave for more than an hour before they finally arrived at a huge cave. From the top to the bottom, this cave was at least 100 meters tall. At its longest point it was about 2 kilometers long. At its widest point it was more than 500 meters wide. However, such a huge cave didn't seem very spacious. On the contrary, it was very crowded. This was because this huge cave had been completely occupied by the sparkling blue dragon spirit. When these dragon spirits discovered Mo Shi and the others' intrusion, they were all very angry. They all let out dragon roars and attacked Mo Shi and the others. The dragon spirits' attacks were of the psychic type. Naturally, the human desolate hunters had no way of resisting such a mental attack. Even the spirit-engulfing beast and the long Nian Mo Shi couldn't do anything under such a powerful psychic attack. At this point, they could only rely on the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast lived up to their expectations. It stretched out its tentacles and kept probing in all directions. Every time it probed, a large number of dragon spirits would be devoured. It was as if a naughty child was constantly opening his mouth to bite off a hole in a birthday cake. At first, these dragon spirits didn't seem to care. After all, these dragon spirits were far stronger than these humans. Even if more dragon spirits were devoured, they would eventually be able to suppress these humans. However, they didn't expect the spirit-engulfing beast to be so powerful that it was beyond their imagination. Every time the spirit-engulfing beast opened its mouth, it would devour a large number of dragon spirits. Over time, all of the dragon spirits here would be devoured by the dragon spirits. Chapter 4:12. The dragon spirits wanted to devour these humans. But soon, they realized that they were wrong. Their real opponent wasn't these humans, but that inconspicuous cat. And they couldn't even fight back in front of this tiny cat. None of their attacks had any effect on this cat. Mental attacks. Ineffective. Energy attacks. Ineffective. It was as if this cat was born to counter their dragon spirits. Seeing that this inconspicuous cat had already devoured 1/3 of their dragon spirits, the dragon spirits felt a sense of danger. They didn't dare to fight against the devouring beast anymore. Instead, they went into the hundreds and thousands of caves around them. Someone suggested bringing the soul-devouring beast to kill all the dragon spirits in the caves. But it was quickly rejected by the others. Don't forget that we're here to look for treasures, not to kill these dragon spirits. That person had no choice but to give up. Then, all of them started searching for the so-called treasures in the cave. At first glance, although the cave was huge, it was empty. In terms of treasure hunting, Mo Shi and the level 1 spiritual psyche master had a huge advantage. Mo Shi used his dragon psyche to scan the surroundings. He didn't find anything here. The spiritual psyche master didn't find anything useful either. Next, everyone began to conduct a carpet search of the place. After all, they had taken so many risks to come here. If they concluded that there were no treasures here just by looking, none of them would be satisfied. In the end, after a search, he finally found something. A Sky Gold sect disciple who was searching suddenly stopped in his tracks. He stomped the ground under his feet. Bang bang. A different sound came from the ground. That Sky Gold sect disciple said to everyone, "It's empty." When the others heard this, they also gathered around. That disciple used a dagger and carefully scraped the ground under his feet. Soon, they found a huge stone slab that was about 20 meters long. Everyone cleaned up the dust and rocks on the stone slab and found that there were 2 huge pull tabs on the side of the stone slab. It took a lot of effort for them to pull the ring and open the huge stone slab. Looking down from here, it was another tunnel. Using dragon will to investigate, there were still many dragon spirits below. Let the spirit-devouring beast go first. The dragon spirits below seemed to be much more ferocious than the ones above. However, in the face of the spirit-engulfing beast, no matter how ferocious the dragon spirit was, there was nothing to worry about. The spirit-engulfing beast extended a dozen or so tentacles and devoured most of the dragon spirits here. The remaining dragon spirits hurriedly fled. What a joke! If he didn't run now, was he supposed to stay and wait for death? After all the dragon spirits left, everyone continued to explore the things here. This cave was about the same size as the one above. However, the cave here didn't seem so spacious. This was very strange. It was clearly the same layout, but the people above felt that it was very spacious. However, when they reached the bottom, they didn't find it spacious at all. Because in this cave, there were many things scattered on the ground. There were weapons, shields, gems, and the like. When the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples saw this, their eyes lit up. There was finally something good. A Heavenly Gold Sect disciple said, "Everyone, search carefully." They spread out and searched carefully on the ground and the surrounding cave walls. These weapons, shields, and gems all had one thing in common. As long as the dust was wiped off, they would become shiny and dazzling. The swords and shields were inlaid with gold and silver, not to mention the gems. It seemed that the dragon's fondness for shiny things had started since ancient times. From all the signs, this should be a giant dragon's nest. It was a mother dragon with a few baby dragons. These shiny things were like toys that the mother dragon collected for the baby dragons. These weapons inlaid with gold and silver were basically useless to the hunters. However, it didn't take long for these people to find 2 swords. On the surface, these 2 swords seemed to be similar to the other inlaid swords. However, if one used mind power to investigate, one would find that these 2 swords had traces of energy washing over them. Upon closer inspection, one would find that these 2 swords had been washed over by energy all year round. Thinking about it, it was very likely that these 2 swords could be used in battle by directly injecting energy into them. After injecting energy into them, the combat power of these 2 swords would be greatly increased. One had to know that hunters could at most release energy through energy weapons. It was basically impossible for them to add energy to other weapons. However, with these 2 swords, it was very likely that they could directly add energy to their weapons. Therefore, these 2 swords were basically treasures in the eyes of these hunters. However, to Mo Sure, they were equivalent to trash. He was already able to add energy to any part of his body long ago. He could do it with his claws, giant axes, fists, and so on. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect were still a little worried that Mo Sure would snatch these 2 swords from them. At that time, would they give in or not? However, seeing that Mo Sure didn't seem to have any intention of snatching these 2 swords, they were relieved. Next, 2 disciples of the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect also found a few things. Mo Sure was not interested in these so-called treasures. In his mind he said, "System, sign in." To him, no treasure was as practical as the system's reward. The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, underground dragon cave. Sign in reward, dragon soul true body. He looked carefully at the skill description. Dragon soul true body. Normally hidden in the body, the dragon soul true body will be released during battle. 100-meter tall dragon phantom will appear behind the user, and their combat power will increase 10-fold. It will also create a strong deterrent effect on the enemy. When Mo Sure saw this, he laughed inwardly. Isn't this the martial soul true body? He actually didn't think much of the dragon soul true body's increase in combat power. After all, the upper limit of his combat power was the sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone had already reached the level of a level 1 evolved wild beast. It was equivalent to a level 1 grand desolate master. Therefore, this 10-fold increase in combat power was dispensable to him. On the contrary, the strong deterrent effect made him very satisfied. Many times, when he couldn't attack, he needed to deter the other party. This dragon soul true body was very impressive. Just imagine how shocking it would be if a person suddenly released a 100-meter-tall dragon phantom right in front of you. Chapter 4:13. After obtaining the dragon's soul true body, Mo Shi remained calm and collected as he continued to search the area. At this moment, a Sky Gold sect disciple discovered a fist-sized ball-shaped object on the ground. More than half of it had sunk into the ground. Although it was covered in a thick layer of dust, it still looked shiny. He was delighted. He had found a treasure. He immediately rushed over and picked it up. But after picking it up, he realized that it was just a shard. It was supposed to be a ball-shaped object. Now, only 1/3 of it was left. No matter how good an object was, it was worthless when it was broken into pieces. He took a closer look at it and passed it to the spiritual psyche master. The spiritual psyche master examined it carefully for a while but didn't find anything. He shook his head and said, "It's useless." The Sky Gold sect disciple smiled bitterly and cursed, "Damn it." He threw the shard to the side. It was about to hit the wall. However, at this moment, a figure appeared and caught the item. It was none other than Mo Shi. He caught the item and was secretly delighted. When the Sky Gold sect disciple checked it, he had used his dragon consciousness to check it. The composition of this object was exactly the same as the Dragon Ball shard he had obtained before. Obviously, it was also a Dragon Ball shard. These people didn't know what it was and threw it away like trash. It was his now. Thinking of this, he kept the Dragon Ball shard. The Sky Gold sect disciple and the level 1 spiritual psyche master were both shocked when they saw Mo Shi's action. Did they make a mistake? Both of them were secretly regretting it. Then they thought, how could something in the underground dragon cave be ordinary? They were the ones who had found it, but they had thrown it away like trash. This kid had taken advantage of them. They were really too stupid. But they didn't want to admit that they were too stupid. They looked around and didn't see any other disciples. They pretended that nothing had happened. Most importantly, they didn't know what it was. They didn't want to fall out with someone who was related to Han Jianxing over an unknown object. Mo Shi kept the Dragon Ball shard and continued to search around. Hopefully, he could find another Dragon Ball fragment. At that time, the 3 Dragon Ball fragments would be able to form a complete Dragon Ball. However, they didn't find anything useful in the underground dragon cavern. This caused everyone to feel slightly disappointed. Xiao Chen found 2 swords in such a huge underground dragon cave. He felt somewhat dissatisfied. However, Mo Shi was already quite satisfied. 1 Dragon Ball fragment was already a great harvest. Not to mention, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured so many dragon spirits. According to Mo Shi's knowledge, after the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the dragon spirits, it would split them into 2 parts. Part of it was energy for him to absorb. The other part was the dragon will, which was stored in the space within its body. If he could find a way to make it spit out all the dragon senses it had devoured, he might be able to raise his dragon senses by 2 or even 3 levels. This was also one of Mo Shi's great gains. At this point, there was nothing of value to be found here. However, on the walls of this huge cave, there were hundreds and thousands of holes with diameters of about 5 meters. It was not a small task to check all the hundreds and thousands of holes. These disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect were planning to use their advantage in numbers to turn this place upside down. However, Mo Shi didn't have such patience. There were a total of 4 districts in the ancient dragon battlefield and each district wasn't small. If they had to turn every place upside down, they would never be able to search this place for the rest of their lives. Therefore, Mo Shi decided to leave this place temporarily. At most, he would wait for these people to finish searching this place and then plunder their memories to see if there was anything good. If there wasn't, then so be it. If there was, then he would just snatch it. Therefore, Mo Shi said to the leader of the group, "Now that most of the dragon spirits in this cave have been devoured, if you want to continue searching this cave, then continue. I have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, the Heavenly Gold sect disciples couldn't stop him. They could only bid farewell to Mo Shi. After that, they continued searching here while Mo Shi led the spirit-engulfing beast out of the cave. At the same time, at the entrance of the cave, among those people, the multifunction watches of over 70 Heavenly Gold sect disciples rang at the same time. They had received a video message. They all opened the video message. It was the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect was furious. All Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, listen up. Our Heavenly Gold Sect disciple, Ibu Fan, has been killed and the biggest suspect has been identified. It's this person. As he spoke, a person's portrait appeared beside him. It was Mo Shur. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect said, "This person's name is Mo Shur. If you see him, report immediately and capture him. Wait for me to come and deal with him." The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples at the entrance of the cave were all stunned when they saw Mo Shur's portrait. He looks like him. Yes, he does look like him. Could it be the same person? I think it's possible. These people had only seen Mo Shur once and weren't sure. Why don't we report this to the Great Elder? A disciple suggested. Another disciple immediately retorted, "Are you stupid? We're not sure if it's him. If it's him, it'll be good. If it's not him, the Great Elder is angry now. If we report it rashly, won't we be asking for trouble?" You're right. It's a pity that we didn't record his image just now. Otherwise, we'll know if it's him. There's no signal in the catacombs. Those disciples probably haven't received the Great Elder's message. When that guy comes up, we'll take a few more photos of him and send them to the Great Elder so that he can identify him himself. That's right. If it's really that guy, we'll have provided an important clue and have made a contribution. If it's not him, then it's the Great Elder's own fault. He can't blame us. After the discussion, everyone calmly waited for Mo Shur to come up. About 5 minutes later, a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was none other than Mo Shur. Everyone exchanged glances when they saw Mo Shur's elusive footwork. It meant that they shouldn't act rashly. The remaining 100 or so Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples were on the same side as the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. They were all secretly on guard but didn't act rashly. Chapter 4:14. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples exchanged glances. How could they hide their little actions from the level 7 Long Yen Shur Mo Shur? He immediately plundered the memories of one of them and quickly knew what they were thinking. It turned out that these people were already suspecting that he had killed Ibu Fan. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. Thinking of this, Mo Shur looked around at the 200 Heavenly Gold Tri-Sect disciples around him. He sneered, "Since you want to kill me, I'm sorry." As he spoke, he used his mind. The next moment, 100-meter-tall and 500-meter-long dragon shadow appeared behind him. Although it was just a shadow, its scales were distinct, and its eyes and nose were clear. It was as lifelike as a real dragon. The disciples of the Celestial Gold Tri-Sect turned pale with fright. No matter how many strange things they had experienced in the ancient dragon battlefield, they were not as shocked as seeing a 100-meter-long dragon shadow in front of them. In front of this huge creature, they seemed so small and weak. They were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Moreover, this huge creature was terrifying not only because of its size, but also because of the domineering aura it emitted. Under this domineering aura, even the strongest level 7 Desolate Hunter among them did not dare to move. This was the strength of the Dragon Soul True Body. With Mo Shur's current Dragon Soul True Body, perhaps only Desolate Hunters above level 8 could barely withstand it. Desolate Hunters below level 8 did not even have the thought of running away. There was only one word left: fear. Since this guy was left here to be slaughtered, Mo Shur naturally would not be polite. His right arm turned into a dragon claw. This time, it was not a skill. It was a real dragon claw. The next moment, the dragon claw swept out. Whoosh! An invisible force instantly flew towards the 200 people. Rip! There was a series of ripping sounds. These people did not have any intention of resisting at all. Under the tearing of the invisible force, these people were directly torn into pieces. They turned into a rain of blood that shone with a wine-red luster under the sunlight. At the same time, in Mo Shur's mind, a number had already appeared. Kill points: 1851000. Since Mo Shur had already started killing, he naturally would not miss out on anything. He teleported to the underground cavern. He used his telekinesis to investigate and found all the Heavenly Gold Tri-Sect disciples in the underground cavern. Then he killed them all. In his mind, the kill points increased again. Frowny face kill points. 2111000. In just a few seconds, the kill points had increased over 200. At this rate, it would not take long for it to evolve. The bloodthirsty demonic dragon's advancement was truly monstrous. Moreover, its evolution did not really matter was the level of its enemies. As long as you kill, you to kill would be counted over was kills to kill. In that case, there was no need for Xianxia to deal with those level 10 desolate hunters. Not only were level 10 desolate hunters strong, but they were also few in number. After killing these people, he took the 2 swords that they had obtained. Although he did not need them, it was not a bad choice to give them to his subordinates. Xianxia returned to the ground and withdrew his dragon soul true body. The spirit-engulfing beast that had been following Xianxia was also quite frightened. It only heaved a sigh of relief when Xianxia withdrew his dragon soul true body. It had a new understanding of this human in its heart. Previously, it only felt that this human was a little mysterious, but it did not feel that he was too special. Therefore, it thought that if there was a chance, it would run away. It even wanted to stab this human in the back when he was in danger. But now, after seeing the dragon soul true body, especially after seeing this human kill so many humans without even batting an eye, it completely gave up on this idea. It was better to stay by his side obediently. Otherwise, if this human went crazy again, it would not be able to bear it. And the most fundamental reason was that when Xianxia released the giant dragon phantom, the spirit-engulfing beast felt a sense of familiarity with Xianxia. This made it not as disgusted with Xianxia as before. Because of these 2 reasons, it gave up on the idea of running away in the future. At this time, a tearing sound came from Xianxia's back, and a pair of wings stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. The shape was similar to a bat's wings. However, there were several large and small holes on the wings. This was not a skill, but his real demonic dragon wings. Although on the surface, the system did not give him any other benefits for this promotion. But in fact, as he evolved into the bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he had improved in all aspects. For example, the blood dragon wings had evolved into the demonic dragon wings. The demonic dragon wings could reach 10,000 meters per second when flying at top speed. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings were more flexible than the blood dragon wings. This gave him more space and maneuverability when fighting in the air. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings also added a defensive ability. This defensive ability was very abnormal. The demonic dragon wings protected the whole body and could withstand any physical and energy attack below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At this time, Xianxia stopped after flying at full speed for about 100 kilometers. He summoned the Sea Dragon clone and took out the Dragon Ball fragment. Then, he threw the Dragon Ball fragment to the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone opened its mouth and swallowed it. In the next moment, the Sea Dragon clone's body changed again. The scales on its body were more metallic than before. Its body length also increased again, reaching a length of 1,500 meters. The thickest part of its body was more than 50 meters thick. The pair of lumps on its forehead also bulged a little. It seemed that something was about to be born from them. The pair of dragon whiskers also grew a little longer, reaching a length of more than 10 meters. He looked even more imposing than before. At this time, the Sea Dragon clone looked very excited. It kept twisting its body and waving its claws. It stretched its neck and let out an earth-shattering roar. Roar! In the entire second district, within a radius of hundreds of square kilometers, all the creatures heard this roar. They were all greatly shocked. One by one, they fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. As a result of swallowing the Dragon Ball fragment this time, the Sea Dragon clone's level also increased again. Species, Sea Dragon. Level 2 Strong Mutant Wild Beast. Ability. Expand. When Xianxia saw this, he was secretly delighted. As long as he found another Dragon Ball fragment, would it be able to evolve into a real dragon? And looking at its size, it was not a Western dragon. It was going for the Eastern Dragon God. The Dragon God was an existence that was more awesome than the Western dragon. It could ride the clouds and summon the rain. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Xianxia looked around and gave an order to the Sea Dragon avatar. Move about freely and explore the ancient dragon battlefield to see what's going on. Chapter 4:15. The sea dragon clone was shaped like a giant dragon. It was 1,500 meters long. If such a huge body was allowed to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield, it would be too eye-catching. Therefore, Mo let it return to a size of only 20 meters. Then, the sea dragon clone rose into the air and disappeared into the distant sky. After the sea dragon clone swallowed the dragon pearl fragment, its flying ability had greatly improved. It didn't seem to have wings, nor did it walk on clouds like in the legends. No one knew how it could fly. But it could fly, and its speed was far beyond that of ordinary creatures. This was something Mo couldn't understand at all. Since he didn't want to think about things that he couldn't figure out, Mo stopped thinking about it. He continued to envelop the area with a radius of 350 kilometers with his dragon consciousness. As for whether the disciples of the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Tianshui sect would be found out and would be hunted down by the three sects, Mo didn't care at all. To a certain extent, he even hoped that the three sects would hunt him down. And the more people there were, the better. The more people there were, the more kill points he could obtain. This was also a slight change in his temperament after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the past, he was very cautious. Basically, they would hide until they were strong enough to crush their opponents. Only then would they reveal their identities. But now, because of the influence of the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his state of mind had quietly changed. He had a desire to kill and fight. But this wouldn't cause him to go berserk. Between the bloodthirsty demon dragon and going berserk, there was the word demon. But there was a big difference. Going berserk meant that he had lost his mind and couldn't control his killing. If he really went berserk, he might even kill his family and friends. But the bloodthirsty demon dragon was rational. Although it was also bloodthirsty, it would plan and kill rationally. It wouldn't hurt its friends and family, and it wouldn't lose its life for the sake of killing. Next, Mo continued to wander in the second district. During this time, he encountered some dragon spirits, but they were all devoured by the spirit-devouring beasts. Mo was very curious about the spirit-devouring beast. To humans, dragon spirits were extremely powerful and terrifying existences. Humans basically had no way to deal with dragon spirits, not even Grand Desolate Masters. The spirit-engulfing beast looked very weak, but it was the bane of dragon spirits. No matter how powerful the dragon spirit was, it could swallow it in one gulp. Mo spent 3 days exploring the area with his dragon will. At the same time, the sea dragon clone also wandered around. He did a simple search of the second district. He didn't find anything else useful. Next, he headed towards the third zone. In the ancient dragon battlefield, District 3 was more dangerous than District 2. Other than having more dragon spirits, the creatures in the third division were also more powerful than those in the second division. There were even some level 8 and above mutated dire beasts in the third district. Therefore, after entering the ancient dragon battlefield, some of the desolate hunters below level 8 did not dare to enter District 3. However, Mo did not care about this. On the surface, he looked like a level 2 desolate hunter. However, his true combat power was enough to deal with a level 7 desolate hunter. In addition, with the sea dragon clone's strength as a level 2 mutated dire beast, he could roam freely in District 3. At the same time, in the Skygold Trisect. After the Skygold sect's first elder sent out the message, no disciple responded. This made the first elder even angrier. That kid wanted to hide after killing his trusted disciple. Humph. He was too naive. He could hide for a while, but could he hide forever? Moreover, the Skygold sect's influence in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud was beyond imagination. In addition, the Heavenly Wood sect, Heavenly Water sect, Heavenly Fire sect, and Heavenly Earth sect were all in cahoots with the Skygold sect. It was not difficult to find a person. As long as that kid was still in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, he could be found. However, something else happened in the Skygold sect these few days. There were more than 300 disciples who went to the ancient dragon battlefield to train. However, there were only about 220 people who could be contacted. The Skygold sect had a rule that all disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield had to check in every 3 hours. However, 15 hours had passed, and there was still no news from these 70 disciples. Obviously, they must have met with some mishap. They investigated and found that these 70 disciples were sent to investigate the catacombs in Zone 2. Could it be that they met with some danger in the catacombs? Therefore, the Sky Gold sect quickly sent people to the catacombs. However, they found that the catacombs were already empty. The dragon spirits from before were nowhere to be seen. However, they found many bloodstains and pieces of cloth on the ground near the catacombs. Judging from these pieces of cloth, they should be the clothes of the Sky Gold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect disciples. Obviously, the disciples of the three sects had met with a powerful attack here. They did not even have time to send out a distress signal or activate the wormhole transportation device. At the same time, the same thing happened to the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect. After a comprehensive analysis, everyone discovered a terrifying fact. Firstly, the murderer was still fighting against the Sky Gold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. It was obvious that he was not afraid of the three sections. Secondly, there were more than 200 disciples from the three sects who came to the catacombs. However, there were no signs of fighting at the scene. In other words, these 200 people were killed in an instant. They did not even have the chance to react. To be able to kill more than 200 desolate hunters in the blink of an eye. This person's ability was probably that of a level 10 desolate hunter. To be more daring, this person's ability might have already reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master. The third elder of the Sky Gold sect, who was sent to investigate this matter, pondered for a moment before asking, which level 8 and above powerhouses have come to the ancient dragon battlefield recently? The disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect who were guarding the entrance answered, the other forces are afraid of our three sects and do not dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield rashly. During this period, only one super powerhouse has come to the ancient dragon battlefield. Han Jianxing, who froze 16 states with a single sword. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had heard of the name, froze 16 states with a single sword, since decades ago. Could it be that Han Jianxing was the murderer? However, why would he kill the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to snatch the treasures in the catacombs? However, Han Jianxing was not someone who coveted treasures. He had no desires and was not interested in anything. The three sects had also warned their disciples many times to give way to Han Jianxing if they met him. Even if they could not, they had to give way. Hence, the disciples would not clash with Han Jianxing over a single treasure. Then who was it? Chapter 4:16. If it's not Han Jianxing, then who could it be? This question stumped everyone present. The third elder of the Sky Gold sect glanced at the two elders of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect who had come to investigate. Finally, he looked back at the disciples of the three sects who were guarding the entrance. He asked, think about it carefully. Apart from Han Jianxing, are there any other experts who entered the ancient dragon battlefield? Not just recently, but also experts who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield in the past and have yet to come out. The disciples thought for a moment and shook their heads. The yin qi in the ancient dragon battlefield is too strong. That's why many people only stay for half a month before coming out. In the past month, the experts above level 8 who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield are all disciples of the three sections. As for the other factions, apart from Han Jianxing, there's also a Grand Desolate Master. But that Grand Desolate Master has already come out. The third elder of the Sky Gold sect frowned. Could it be a mutated dire beast? But soon, he rejected this idea. Although the ancient dragon battlefield was dangerous, there weren't many mutated dire beasts. Moreover, the strongest mutated dire beast in the second zone was only level 7. It was impossible for it to tear so many people to pieces in such a short time. After a moment he asked again, then think about it carefully. Recently, have there been any people from other forces that are not considered strong but have some strange abilities that have entered the ancient dragon battlefield? The disciples shook their heads at first. Those who could enter the ancient dragon battlefield were not weak at all. But soon, someone thought of something and suddenly said, oh yes, a level 2 desolate hunter entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The ancient dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Generally speaking, only desolate hunters above level 5 would take the risk to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. As for the level 5 desolate hunters, entering the ancient dragon battlefield was basically a suicide mission. But now, a level 2 desolate hunter had entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Naturally, it was very strange. Everyone's eyes were focused on the disciple who spoke. The third elder asked again, "You let a level 2 desolate hunter in?" The disciple shook his head and said, "We didn't want to. We didn't plan to let him in, but Han Jianxing came later. He even took the initiative to greet the level 2 desolate hunter. It seems like they have a good relationship. So we didn't dare to stop him." The disciple's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. They had indeed failed in their duties. At the very least, they should find out the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. However, they also had their own difficulties. At that time, Han Jianxing's aura was too strong. They didn't dare to say anything. The third elder asked with a solemn expression, "What is his relationship with Han Jianxing? Are they very close, or just acquaintances?" The disciples stammered and finally said, "We're not too sure." At that time, he was the first to arrive, and Han Jianxing was right behind him. When Han Jianxing asked him if he had become a second-stage desolate hunter, he replied, "Yes." Then, Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. He followed us into the ancient dragon battlefield. The third elder of the heavenly gold sect fell silent again. Under such circumstances, it was really hard to determine the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing came to the ancient dragon battlefield once a year, regardless of whether it was a low or high tide. He came here to pay his respects to his deceased wife. This wasn't strange. But where did that brat come from? What was his relationship with Han Jianxing? At this time, the elder of the heavenly water sect asked, "That second-stage desolate hunter and Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Were they heading here?" The disciple who answered shook his head at first, then nodded his head. The others were puzzled. What did he mean by nodding and shaking his head? The disciple replied, "Han Jianxing went in the direction of the 4th district. He goes in that direction every year. But that second-stage desolate hunter went in the direction of the 2nd district." At this point, he suddenly paused. The rest of the crowd also came to their senses. A second-stage desolate hunter dared to go into the 2nd district alone. There was definitely something strange about this. Moreover, this tragedy happened in the 2nd district, and he was heading there. Obviously, he was the most suspicious. At this time, one of the disciples guarding the entrance seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Right, now that I think about it, that second-stage desolate hunter looks a bit like the murderer in the video message of the first elder a few days ago." Hearing this, the others felt a chill in their hearts. The third elder's voice suddenly became a lot harsher. "Why didn't you report this before?" The disciples all panicked. Before, he and Han Jianxing came at the same time. We thought they were related. Moreover, the third elder waved his hand. "We'll talk about your questions later. Everyone, retreat to the entrance immediately." Everyone immediately activated their hoverboards and flew towards the entrance. Since that brat had the strength to kill 200 desolate hunters in an instant, the disciples guarding the entrance naturally couldn't defend. Therefore, the third elder ordered everyone to reinforce the entrance. At the same time, the third elder secretly estimated the strength of himself and that brat. As a level 10 desolate hunter, even if he couldn't win against that brat, he wouldn't be killed by him. However, if that brat and Han Jianxing came at the same time, it would be troublesome. However, the first elder was the second in command of the Sky Gold sect after the sect master. He was someone who couldn't be offended. The first elder's personal disciple had been killed, so he naturally wanted to take revenge. Moreover, that brat had probably killed more than 70 Sky Gold sect disciples, as well as hundreds of Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. This debt couldn't be let go just like that. Even if he had Han Jianxing behind him and couldn't take revenge on that brat, he had to at least ask for an explanation. Otherwise, the Sky Gold sect, Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect, the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, would become a laughing stock. Thinking of this, the third elder reported this matter to the sect master of the Sky Gold sect. The sect master of the Sky Gold sect immediately ordered the first elder to bring more than 50 desolate hunters to the ancient dragon battlefield as reinforcements. At the same time, the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect also reported to their sect masters. After all, More than 70 desolate hunters had died in their sections. One had to know that every desolate hunter was made up of countless resources. Now that 70 of them had died, it was definitely a heavy loss. Moreover, this matter was very likely related to Han Jianxing. If they didn't report this, how could the elders resist Han Jianxing? Chapter 4:17. When the elders of the Skygold, Skywood and Skywater sects realized that Han Jianxing might be involved, they immediately contacted their respective sections. After a discussion, the upper echelons of the three sects decided that each sect would send a Grand Desolate Master to the ancient dragon battlefield. If this matter had nothing to do with Han Jianxing, it would be good. If it did, then the three Grand Desolate Masters would be able to make Han Jianxing feel apprehensive. Of course, they did not know that Han Jianxing had already been promoted to a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. As for these three sects, all the 4 Grand Desolate Masters were only level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters of the 3 sects led close to 500 Desolate Master disciples to guard the entrance for 3 days, but they did not see Mo Sure come out. Especially the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. He was eager to avenge his disciple and said to the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects, "You guys continue to guard here with your disciples. I'll go in and search." The Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects wanted to stop him, but when they saw the Skygold sect's Grand Elder's determined gaze, they gave up. Many people said that Yi Bufan was actually the illegitimate son of the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. However, due to many complicated relationships, he could not admit it, so he could only accept Yi Bufan as his disciple. Now that his son had been killed, he was naturally furious. If they insisted on stopping him, he would probably be displeased. Therefore, the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects told the Skygold sect's Grand Elder to be careful and let him go. Seeing the Skygold sect's Grand Elder lead the 100 Desolate Masters into the depths of the ancient dragon battlefield, the 2 Grand Desolate Masters shook their heads. One of them said, "Nothing will happen to him, right?" The other said, "Although he's eager to avenge his disciple, he's not a young man without schemes. If he really meets Han Jianxing, I believe he knows what he's doing." The Grand Desolate Master sighed. "Sigh, I hope so." The Skygold sect's Grand Elder led the 100 Desolate Masters and flew towards District 2. They arrived at the edge of the underground cavern. Then he said to the disciples, "With this place as the center, spread out and search. Once you find traces of that kid, don't attack him. Contact me immediately." The group of disciples didn't dare to disobey and replied, "Yes." As they spoke, they spread out in all directions to search the area. However, as they searched, these disciples were somewhat on tenterhooks. Although they had the backing of a Grand Desolate Master, the murderer was in existence that could instantly kill over 200 desolate hunters. If that brat really went crazy, then they would be torn to shreds by that brat before Head Elder arrived at all. But now that things had come to this, how could they dare to disobey the Great Elder's orders? They could only continue to search the area. At this time, Mo Sure had already thoroughly investigated District 2. He didn't find anything else of value here, so he set off for District 3. The third zone of the ancient dragon battlefield was a lake. There were over 1,000 lakes of various sizes here. The large ones were tens of thousands of square kilometers, while the small ones were only slightly more than 1,000 square meters. So many lakes formed a huge group of lakes. These lakes were more than 10,000 meters deep. In these lakes, water plants crisscrossed. If he wanted to go down for a swim, it was very likely that he would be entangled by the aquatic plants. From the looks of it, there weren't any mountains or forests here, so there didn't seem to be any danger. However, since this place was classified as District 3, it meant that it was more dangerous than District 2. Therefore, Mo Sure didn't relax in the slightest. He first used his draconic sense to completely investigate the area within a radius of 350 kilometers. He found that the surface seemed to be very safe, and there wasn't any danger. He then controlled his draconic sense to investigate these lakes. In his investigation, he found that there were many skeletons in these lakes. These skeletons weren't complete. After an unknown amount of time, many of the skeletons had been corroded by the microorganisms in the lake water and water until they were full of holes. However, according to the location of these skeletons, after a rough reconstruction, he found that these skeletons were basically the skeletons of dragons. The small ones were only about 50 meters long, while the large ones were more than 1,000 meters long. All of the skeletons were basically incomplete. However, he could occasionally detect that some of the skeletons still had the skull of a dragon. Their sharp and thick teeth, their angular brow bones, and the dozens of sharp bone spurs on their heads. All of them described the might, power, and dominance of this dragon when it was alive. These dragon skeletons all had a certain research value. One of them could be sold for a lot of money. However, Mo Shi didn't care about this small amount of money. After inheriting almost all the property of the owner of Hunting Island No. 1, Mo Shi wasn't short of money at all now. In his eyes, money was just a string of numbers. Therefore, his current focus wasn't on these things. He was looking for one thing: the Dragon Ball fragments. He already had 2 Dragon Ball fragments. If he swallowed another one, the Sea Dragon avatar should be able to evolve into a real Eastern Divine Dragon. However, after flying over this group of lakes for half a day and investigating for half a day, he still didn't find any Dragon Ball fragments. It seemed that he was overthinking. According to legend, it seemed that only Eastern Divine Dragons had Dragon Balls in their bodies. As for Western dragons, he didn't seem to have heard of any Dragon Balls. And the dragon skeletons in these lakes seemed to belong to Western dragons. It was normal that there were no Dragon Balls. After searching in District 3 for another 2 days, Mo Shi even condensed his virus avatar and entered these lakes. In the end, he didn't find anything. This made him feel a little strange. According to the memories of all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect, District 3 should be more dangerous than District 2, and there should be more treasures to be obtained. However, there was neither danger nor any treasure to be obtained here. This was very strange. However, since he couldn't figure it out for the time being, Mo Shi simply stopped thinking about it. Instead, he continued to head to more dangerous places. However, not long after Mo Shi left, the largest lake in the group of lakes seemed to suddenly light up. Looking down from the sky, this lake seemed to be a window. At night, someone used a flashlight to flash through this window. However, it only lit up for a moment and soon dimmed again. As if nothing had happened, Mo Shi left the 3rd zone and headed towards the most dangerous zone, the 4th zone. After arriving here, Mo Shi's vigilance was much higher. Whether it was the map he obtained or the memories he plundered from those people, District 4 was extremely dangerous. The danger was not only because there were some powerful mutated wild beasts here, but also because there were many dragon spirits here. Chapter 4:18. From the map and the memories of the Skygold sect disciples, Mo Shi knew that the 4th zone was the most dangerous zone in the ancient dragon battlefield. Therefore, as soon as he arrived here, he raised his guard. The spirit-engulfing beast beside him also lowered its body and looked around nervously from time to time. However, to Mo Shi's surprise, this place was not as creepy as he had imagined. On the contrary, it was a large grassland. The grass was not very tall, only reaching his knees. There were large patches of wild flowers in the grass. Red, blue, yellow, purple, and white. A breeze blew and the flowers nodded. A large river meandered through the grassland. It looked like a jade belt under the sunlight. Not far away, there were a few birds with beautiful feathers. They flew in the sky for a while and then disappeared into the flowers. The sun was shining brightly and the flowers were fragrant. No matter what, no one would associate this place with the ancient dragon battlefield. Mo Shi probed with his dragon will and soon found a figure sitting on the bank of the river more than 200 kilometers away. His face was full of whiskers and there was a giant technological sword beside him. This person was none other than Han Jianxing. At this moment, Han Jianxing was holding a wine jug and facing the river. He raised his head and took a sip from time to time. Beside him was a grave filled with weeds and wildflowers. In front of the grave was a stone tablet that was taller than a person. There were 4 words written on it: Tomb of the Deceased Wife. The name of the tomb owner was not engraved, nor was the person who had set up the tablet. Han Jianxing came to this city once a year to mourn for his deceased wife. It was admirable indeed. At this moment, Han Jianxing might have already known that Mo Shi was here. However, he did not seem to care at all. At this moment, he did not want to be disturbed by anyone. Mo Shi did not intend to disturb him either. He continued to probe nearby. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers behind Mo Shi. The first elder of the Sky Gold sect had brought more than 100 disciples to the edge of the fourth zone. A disciple said, "First elder, according to the life detector we left behind, that guy has entered the fourth zone. Should we follow him?" The first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "Yes, why not?" That disciple still wanted to say something, but another disciple beside him tugged at the corner of that disciple's clothes. The disciple could only swallow his words. However, everyone else was thinking the same thing as him. Ever since they knew about the ancient dragon battlefield, they had heard that District 4 of the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying. Every elder warned them, if you have the chance to go to the ancient battlefield of the great dragon in the future, don't enter District 4 without careful consideration. Therefore, now that the great elder had allowed them to enter, they felt somewhat uneasy. But head elder's orders, they did not dare to defy either. He could only grit his teeth and follow the first elder into the fourth district. As he walked, he silently comforted himself. With the Grand Elder, the Grand Desolate Master, there shouldn't be any problems. The Great Elder wasn't stupid. Although his heart was filled with anger and hatred, he did not let it get to his head. He knew that although the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying, it was currently at a low ebb and was not as scary as before. Moreover, the scariest part of the ancient dragon battlefield was only at night. During the day, this place was no different from any other ordinary place in the outside world. Since there were various signs that indicated that this kid had gone to District 4. Naturally, he had to let his disciples follow him in to search before the sky turned dark. After about 2 hours, a level 10 psychic master from the Sky Gold sect suddenly said, "Found him." The disciples of the Sky Gold sect were stunned. The Sky Gold sect's great elder immediately ordered, "Lead the way." The level 10 psychic master replied, "Yes." Then, he quickly flew forward. The 100 or so disciples of the Sky Gold sect immediately followed. After a while, they saw Mo Shi stopping in the middle of the grassland. Moreover, Mo Shi did not panic at all when he saw them. Instead, he looked at them with a smile. This made them somewhat puzzled. The Sky Gold sect's great elder's eyes were filled with anger. "Kid, did you kill my disciple, Ibufan?" Mo Shi was facing a Grand Desolate Master who was almost a level higher than him. He calmly nodded and said, "Yes." Everyone was stunned. Ordinary people would not be able to speak properly when they met a Grand Desolate Master. This kid was not afraid of killing a Grand Desolate Master's disciple and even dared to admit it. Was he crazy? The Sky Gold sect's great elder's face turned colder. He asked in a deep voice, "Did you kill the 70 or so disciples of the Sky Gold sect?" Mo Shi smiled again and said, "Yes." Hearing this, everyone from the Sky Gold sect was dumbfounded. There were not many people who dared to offend the Sky Gold sect. This kid had killed the Sky Gold sect's disciples and even admitted it in front of so many of them. He was really about to go crazy. Although the Sky Gold sect's great elder was furious, he thought to himself, this kid is so confident because he has Han Jianxing behind him. But now that things have come to this, he could not care less. I'll take him down and make him suffer. I'll make a decision when Han Jianxing really shows up. Having this thought, his aura burst out from his body. All the wild flowers and weeds within a 10-kilometer radius were pressed against the ground by his aura. Some rocks that had been weathered over time were turned into dust by his aura. The aura of a Grand Desolate Master was so terrifying. But at this moment, Longwei's aura suddenly spread out from Mo Shi's body. In an instant, the disciples of the Sky Gold sect with a lower cultivation level knelt on the ground. Even the disciples with a higher cultivation level could not help but feel the urge to kneel on the ground and worship Lin Fan. Even the Sky Gold sect's great elder felt the urge to worship Lin Fan. He could not help but feel shocked. What the hell was this kid doing? Lin Fan was clearly weaker than him, and his aura was even more different. Why did he suddenly feel the urge to worship Lin Fan? He naturally did not know that Mo Shi's Longwei did not care about how strong one was. It was a kind of suppression between species. Since ancient times, dragons had been the most mysterious and powerful creature in the universe. Any living creature would unconsciously have the urge to submit when encountering a dragon. However, the stronger the creature, the weaker the urge to submit. The Sky Gold sect's great elder thought that this urge to submit came from his fear of Han Jianxing, who was behind Mo Shi. He could not help but feel a little angry. Han Jiansheng was like a mountain. For so many years, he had been above all the forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. He had left them breathless. Now that they were in the ancient dragon battlefield, he was still suppressing them. If there came a day where he could raise his strength to another level, he would definitely kill this Han Jiansheng. Chapter 419. The Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect led more than 100 disciples to find Mo Shi. Mo Shi didn't panic at all. Instead, he calmly admitted that he was the one who had done everything. At the same time, he released his Long Wei. The Long Wei now wasn't the Long Wei that had been cultivated in the Dragon's Cave. It was the Long Wei that Mo Shi had released after he evolved into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Humans were considered a very weak species in front of dragons. Even a Grand Desolate Master was much weaker in front of a real dragon. The Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect naturally had the urge to worship Lin Huang. However, he was a Grand Desolate Master after all. In terms of cultivation level, he was almost an entire realm higher than Mo Shi. Very quickly, he suppressed the urge to worship Lin Huang. "Humph, you're just trying to mystify me." He let out a loud shout, and his imposing aura burst out once again, pressing down on Mo Shi. He was facing the aura of an expert who was almost an entire realm higher than him. Even Mo Shi didn't dare to face it head-on. He had already planned to summon the Sea Dragon clone. The fourth zone was more dangerous. Therefore, he had already recalled the Sea Dragon clone the moment he entered the fourth zone and let it enter his personal reservoir. Once there was danger, he would summon it immediately. However, just as the Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect's aura was about to press down on Mo Shi, at this moment, an even stronger aura suddenly pressed down on the Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect. That aura was far stronger than the Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect. The Great Elder of the Sky Gold sect's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retracted the aura that was pressing down on Mo Shi. At the same time, a Long Wei that was 100 times larger than Mo Shi's Long Wei suddenly attacked. Long Wei wasn't like aura that could form substantial pressure. It was formless, and didn't have any destructive power. It was elegant, intellectual, approachable, or sloppy and wretched. In essence, it wouldn't cause any harm to others. However, Long Wei was able to create an extremely strong psychological pressure on creatures other than the Dragon Clan. Mo Shi had just evolved into a giant dragon, but his Long Wei was already able to make opponents who were almost an entire realm higher than him feel the urge to worship him. One could only imagine how much of an impact a Long Wei that was 100 times stronger than his Long Wei would have on his opponent's psyche. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were terrified when they saw Long Wei. The timid ones fell straight to the ground. Those who were braver also knelt on the ground one after another. All of them were trembling in fear, not even daring to raise their heads. Only the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, could barely remain standing. However, in the face of Long Wei, they felt as if they were standing in front of an ancient behemoth. In front of this colossus, even though he was a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, he was still insignificant. This gigantic creature only needed to move its claws slightly to crush him into dust. Furthermore, when this colossus moved its claws, he couldn't even think of resisting. He didn't even have the thought of running away. Most importantly, this feeling made him panic. One had to know that in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master was already the pinnacle of existence. Ever since he became a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, in the past 50 years, he had never felt the fear of being dominated. However, he felt it now. If that was the case, how strong was this kid? However, he soon forced himself to stay alert. This kid was just a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. How could he be so strong? Furthermore, it didn't seem like Han Jiansheng was behind this. In his opinion, Han Jiansheng was also a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At the same level as him. Even if Han Jiansheng's battle strength was much higher than his, it was impossible for him to feel such a strong sense of oppression. This brat must have used some kind of method to deceive them. He looked at Mo Shi. He saw that Mo Shi didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure. That's right, this kid must be playing tricks on me. Thinking of this, he said sternly, "Disciples of the Sky Gold sect, listen up. This kid is acting mysterious. As long as we overcome the fear in our hearts, he's just a desolate paper beast. However, after he finished speaking, none of the Sky Gold sect disciples responded. He turned around and saw that all the Sky Gold sect disciples were kneeling on the ground, trembling. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. The Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was dumbfounded. What was going on? Was this kid so terrifying? At the same time, Mo Shi was also dumbfounded. He didn't do anything. What was wrong with these guys? At this moment, a shadow slowly rose from the ground behind Mo Shi. It was a huge shadow that was 1,000 meters long and 800 meters wide. This phantom looked like a giant dragon. Its head, claws, tail, eyes, and scales could all be seen clearly. Although it was just a shadow, it gave off a strong sense of deterrence. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect trembled in fear when they saw this scene. Giant Dragon Evil Spirit. Giant Dragon Evil Spirit. It's over. It's over. Run, run. The moment they saw the dragon soul, everyone's expression changed drastically. Giant Dragon Evil Spirits were different from dragon spirits. Dragon spirits were the combination of dragon consciousness and energy. Giant Dragon Evil Spirits were formed when the energy in the dragon's body didn't dissipate immediately after the dragon died. This energy wrapped around the dragon's consciousness and left it behind. Over time, this consciousness gradually became chaotic. Only the dragon's instinct to kill and devour was left. This was known as a Giant Dragon Evil Spirit. A Giant Dragon Evil Spirit had terrifying energy. Humans like them couldn't fight against it at all. Moreover, the evil spirit only had the instinct to kill and devour. Therefore, as long as the evil spirit didn't dissipate, it would kill and devour endlessly. However, the Giant Dragon Evil Spirit would only appear at night. After all, it was an evil spirit and was a little afraid of sunlight. Why would this Giant Dragon Evil Spirit appear in broad daylight? Seeing this, the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder hurriedly shouted, "Run!" In the next moment, he turned and fled first. When the rest of the Sky Gold sect disciples saw this, they all turned and fled. At this moment, the Giant Dragon Evil Spirit spread its wings and swooped down. It spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at the humans below. Its dragon breath was an enormous amount of energy. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions rang out continuously within a radius of 10 kilometers. Smoke and dust filled the air as sparks flew everywhere. The beautiful grassland that had been like a paradise just now instantly turned into a battlefield. The Sky Gold sect disciples who were attacked immediately screamed as they were sent flying. With just one attack, more than 10 Heavenly Gold sect disciples had been killed. The remaining Sky Gold sect disciples were severely injured even if they weren't killed. Even the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the shockwave of the explosion. Chapter 420. Even the first elder of the Sky Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the energy attack of the Dragon Evil Spirit. As for the other disciples of the Sky Gold sect, they were all sent flying as well. Most of them were injured. More than 10 desolate hunters died on the spot. When Mo Shi saw this scene, he immediately became anxious. That's right, he wasn't scared. He was panicking. These Heavenly Gold sect disciples were the kill points that he had already decided on. Other than him, no one else was allowed to kill the Sky Gold sect disciples. He would fight whoever killed him. At that moment, the colossal dragon evil spirit flapped its wings and flew towards Mo Shi after using its energy to send the Heavenly Gold sect disciples flying. Through its illusory body, one could see that the energy had already gathered in its abdomen. Then, it moved from its abdomen to its throat. Finally, it gathered in its mouth. It was now less than 5,000 meters away from Mo Shi. 5,000 meters sounded very far. But for the 1,000-meter-long dragon evil spirit, 5,000 meters was enough for it to launch an attack. On its illusory head, the huge mouth opened like a cave that had been sealed for thousands of years. Between its sharp fangs and scarlet tongue, the fiery red energy had already gathered into a white color. White hot. The next moment, boom! The white-hot energy spread out in a fan shape. With the dragon's mouth as the center, it swept through the space with a radius of 5,000 meters. The Sky Gold sect disciples heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. This kid was dead meat. As long as this kid died, they could immediately activate the wormhole transportation device and leave this godforsaken place. They had had enough of this godforsaken place. Seeing this, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect felt the anger in his chest rising up to his throat. He was about to vent his anger. This kid had killed more than 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Most importantly, he had killed his son. Now, he was finally going to die. It was a pity that he couldn't kill him personally. He had let him off too easily. Just as the energy was about to reach Mo Shi suddenly stopped. Mo Shi used his mind. A knife appeared in his hand. The knife looked very ordinary. It was like the knife used by the butchers during the Lunar New Year. The handle of the saber was wrapped in a dirty white cloth. The unique characteristic of this saber could only be described in one word: big. The broadest part of the blade was more than 2 feet wide. The blade was actually more than 2 meters long. Dragon Salyer. Mo Shi held the Dragon Salyer in his hand, and more than half of the energy in his body crazily poured into the Dragon Salyer. Other than being big, the ordinary-looking Dragon Salyer was actually shining at this moment. Furthermore, the closer the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit got, the brighter the light of the Dragon Salyer became. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night. The darkness was overwhelming, as if it was going to swallow the entire world. But Lighthouse was not afraid. It did its best to release its light, tearing the darkness apart. In the next strike, Mo Shi raised the dragon slaughtering saber above his head. Perpendicular to the ground, it slashed down toward the overwhelming energy. In the next moment, a chaotic energy that seemed black and white, yet was neither black nor white, surged out from the dragon slaughtering saber. Whoosh! This energy was in the shape of an arc. His momentum was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit that was originally attacking Mo Shi from all directions suddenly stopped when it was only half a meter away from Mo Shi. This feeling was as if a tsunami was attacking you from all directions, but it suddenly stopped when it was half a meter away from you. It was extremely dangerous, but the scene looked very mysterious. Moreover, even the giant dragon evil spirit in the sky 5,000 meters away suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had used a camera to freeze this scene. But 3 seconds later, a crack appeared in the center of the energy that covered the sky and the earth. This crack was not wide. It was only about 10 centimeters. However, it connected the sky and the earth, as if it was going to split the world apart. In the next moment, the energy that covered the sky and the earth instantly dissipated between heaven and earth. It was as if the dark clouds that covered the sky and the earth just now had vanished into thin air in front of a gust of wind. At the same time, in the sky 5 kilometers away, the 1,000-meter-long giant dragon evil spirit was also split into 2 halves. Ayo! Accompanied by a long wail, the giant dragon evil spirit also disappeared into thin air. In an instant, the world became clear. It was as if the giant dragon evil spirit had never appeared. It was as if Mo Shi was the only one left in the whole world. Carrying the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder, he stood against the wind. His entire face seemed to be engraved with 2 big words: pretentious. When the disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect saw this, they all looked at Mo Shi in disbelief. This guy, is he a human or a god? He actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit. From the moment they knew about the giant dragon evil spirit, everyone had warned them that the giant dragon evil spirit was a very powerful existence. Even a level 1 desolate hunter like the Great Elder could only take a detour when encountering the giant dragon evil spirit. When these desolate hunters encountered the giant dragon evil spirit, they had no other choice but to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. But now, this guy actually withstood the giant dragon evil spirit's breath and killed it with a single slash. This was 2F** king exaggerated. Most importantly, when this guy was fighting, they could clearly feel that this guy's aura was only that of a level 2 desolate hunter. One had to know that they were basically level 7 or level 8 desolate hunters. In their eyes, a level 2 desolate hunter was simply an ant. But now, this ant actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. They had never dared to brag like this in their lives. This guy actually did it. This was really too exaggerated. As for the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder, he was even more shocked. The stronger one was, the more one could feel the power of the giant dragon evil spirit. Most importantly, the giant dragon evil spirit did not have a body. It was completely a mixture of soul and energy. Therefore it could not be killed at all. Even if you slashed it with a saber, it could still recover. Even if you blasted it with energy, it could still recover. Even if you fought until you were exhausted and died of exhaustion, you would still not be able to kill it. This was the scariest part about it. Therefore, when encountering a giant dragon evil spirit, the most rational thing to do was to take a detour. But now, this guy actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. How could a mere level 2 desolate hunter be so powerful? Common sense told him that this was simply impossible. While he was still in shock, his gaze fell on the large saber that Mo Shi was carrying on his shoulder. It was an ordinary-looking broadsword. On the surface, even the most insignificant disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect would not be interested in this saber. But it was this saber that had split the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit and killed it instantly. Then, this saber was the main reason why this guy could kill the giant dragon evil spirit in an instant. Thinking of this, greed flashed across the Heavenly Gold sect's great elder's eyes. Chapter 421. In the eyes of the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder, the reason why a mere level 2 desolate hunter could kill the giant dragon evil spirit, which even he, a Grand Desolate Master, did not dare to touch, was because of this seemingly insignificant saber. Since the evil spirit was already destroyed, why not take the opportunity to snatch the saber? Even if this kid was related to Han Jianxing, he would have something to say if Han Jianxing pursued the matter. He had killed his personal disciple and over 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Compensating him with a saber was not too much, right? Thinking of this, he felt even more confident. Greed immediately appeared in his eyes. However, this greed only lasted for a moment. The Sky Gold sect's motto was that everything had to be righteous. Even if it was to snatch someone else's treasure, there had to be a valid reason. This was deeply engraved in their bones. Thinking of this, he ordered the Sky Gold sect's disciples. Surround this brat. The Heavenly Gold sect disciples only recovered from the shock of seeing Mo Shi instantly kill the colossal dragon evil spirit after hearing his shout. They quickly spread out and surrounded Mo Shi in the middle. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder said, "Brat, you killed more than 70 of my Sky Gold sect's elite disciples and my personal disciple. I wanted to kill you for revenge, but the Sky Gold sect has always been on good terms with Han Jianxing, so I'll spare your life. However, you have to compensate the Sky Gold sect with this saber so that I can answer to the Sky Gold sect's disciples." At this moment, Mo Shi was also in a state of shock. Although the system had explained to him that the dragon-slaying saber had an absolute restraining effect on the dragon's body, soul, energy, dragon consciousness, and other aspects. However, he did not expect it to be so restrained. The giant dragon evil spirit, which even a level 1 Grand Desolate Master did not dare to touch, was killed in one strike. This was too exaggerated. This dragon-slaying saber was indeed a treasure. Seeing the Sky Gold sect's disciples surrounding him, the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder said some high-sounding nonsense. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Mo Shi's mouth. How could he not know what the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder was thinking? If you want to snatch the saber, just do it. What nonsense are you spouting? The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect saw that Mo Shi only sneered and did not reply. Immediately, the anger in his heart burned even brighter. "Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for being merciless." As he spoke, his aura suddenly surged. Like a tsunami, it pressed down on Mo Shi. At the same time, hundreds of kilometers away by the river, Han Jianxing, who had a full beard, paused slightly as he was about to take a sip of wine. In fact, when these people appeared, he had already sensed them. Naturally, he also sensed the situation Mo Shi was in. Of course, he knew that Mo Shi knew that he was nearby. Therefore, he had been waiting for Mo Shi to speak from the moment these people attacked. In the past, Mo Shi had helped him find his daughter, and he had made a promise to Mo Shi. He could help Mo Shi once. From the beginning, he had been waiting for Mo Shi to speak. Especially when the evil dragon appeared, he felt that Mo Shi would definitely speak. However, the result was beyond his expectations. This kid actually killed the evil dragon with a single slash. This was really an eye-opener for him. Even he, who was not afraid of the evil dragon, did not want to get into trouble like this. The evil dragon could not cause much harm to him, and he could not kill the evil dragon either. In this regard, this kid was indeed quite capable. Now, this kid was facing danger. If he spoke, he would be able to rush over in an instant and save this kid from danger. However, he did not expect this kid to have no intention of looking for him from the beginning until now. Therefore, he naturally would not rush over to save him. Who could he blame if he was courting death? It would be a pity if such a talent died. However, what did that have to do with him? Who asked him to be unwilling to speak? At this moment at the scene, the powerful aura that was like a mountain pressed down on Mo Sure. To be honest, Mo Sure would definitely not be able to withstand such an aura. He was about to summon the Azure Dragon clone. However, at this moment, another mighty Long Way suddenly attacked everyone from all directions. Moreover, this Long Way was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the Long Way of the evil dragon. In everyone's hearts, it rose up like the sky and covered the earth. A bone-deep fear was born in everyone's hearts. This kind of fear made them unable to even think of running away. Therefore, all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples knelt on the ground and shivered. Even the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect did not kneel on the ground, but his body also began to tremble. When he raised his head to look, he saw huge shadows rising from the grassland as far as his eyes could see. A dragon evil spirit. 2 giant dragon evil spirits. 3 evil dragon spirits. Hundreds and thousands of evil dragon flapped their wings and soared into the sky. The bone-chilling feeling came from the hundreds and thousands of dragon evil spirits. Just one evil dragon had almost wiped out all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Now, there were hundreds and thousands of evil dragon. Even the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect felt his scalp go numb. He looked at the disciples who were prostrating on the ground and did not dare to move. While he was shocked, he hurriedly pressed the micro-wormhole transportation device. In the next moment, he transformed into a blue-white ball of light and disappeared instantly. As for the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, they did not dare to use the micro-wormhole transportation device earlier because the Great Elder was here. No one dared to escape. Now that the Great Elder had escaped, they could naturally escape too. However, no one escaped. Under the immense psychological pressure of Long Way, they could not even think of escaping. Among all of them, the only one who was not suppressed by Long Way was Mo Sure. He was also a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He could also produce Long Way. The Long Way of the evil dragon would naturally not affect him at all. Seeing that the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon spirits were about to kill these people, Mo Sure hurriedly used his telekinesis to kill the 2 level 10 telekinesis masters among the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. However, it was a pity that level 10 telekinesis masters were no longer qualified. After killing 2 level 10 telekinesis masters, he did not even gain a single kill point. As for the others, they were basically level 7 to level 8 telekinesis masters. With Mo Sure's current dragon will, he could not kill them all. At this moment, the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon were already flying over. Even the few evil dragons at the front had begun to condense their energy to bombard it down. Mo Sure panicked. They were his people. Only he could kill them. At this thought, he swung the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder. The saber shone brightly. Chapter 422. On the blade of the dragon-slaying saber, a brilliant light shone. A chaotic light that was black and white, but also neither black nor white was suddenly released. In an instant, it enveloped an area of more than 10 kilometers. In the next moment, Mo Sure faced the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits and leaped up. In the air, the bones on his back creaked. A pair of wings tore through the flesh on his back and stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. On the wings, there were more than 10 holes of various sizes. It looked dilapidated, but it gave off a strange, mysterious and powerful feeling. At this time, Xianxia, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was stunned when he saw Mo Sure's pair of wings. He could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a pair of wings. This pair of wings, from the general outline, looked a bit like the wings of the Blood Clan. However, there were so many holes on it, which was very surprising. Moreover, This pair of wings seemed to give off a feeling of having passed through the vicissitudes of time. What kind of wings was this? The moment Mo Shi spread out his wings, the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits seemed to have felt some kind of aura. The weaker ones hurriedly flapped their wings and fled into the distance. The stronger ones seemed to have gone crazy as they flew towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi flapped his wings and raised the dragon-slaying saber high up. With a loud shout, "Die!" Following this shout, the dragon-slaying saber swept across. Whoosh! An invisible saber chi swept across half of the sky in an instant. The giant dragon evil spirits that were flying towards Mo Shi were cut in half by the saber chi after pausing for 3 seconds. In the next moment, they instantly disappeared into the sky. With one slash, hundreds of giant dragon evil spirits were instantly killed. This scene caused all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect to be dumbfounded. In their sect, the strongest person was the sect master. But even their sect master could only take a detour when he saw the giant dragon evil spirits. But this guy was actually able to kill hundreds of them with one slash in the face of so many giant dragon evil spirits. This was simply too exaggerated. Han Jianxing, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was also surprised when he saw this scene. This kid's saber was indeed powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't possibly kill over 100 evil dragons with a single slash, right? Even a level 2 Grand Desolate Master like him could not do it. Naturally, he didn't know why Mo Shi was able to unleash such terrifying power. Firstly, he had the dragon-slaying saber in his hand, which specialized in subduing giant dragons. Secondly, it was because Mo Shi had evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon. If he only had the dragon salure, he would not be able to unleash its strongest power. The dragon salure was used to slay dragons, and the bloodthirsty devil dragon also specialized in slaying dragons for fun. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon used the dragon salure, how could the dragon have a good time? But even so, Mo Shi was still shocked by the sudden change in the situation. The power of this dragon salure was truly formidable. Since the dragon slaughtering saber was so powerful, it naturally had to slaughter all of these giant dragon evil spirits. Thus, Mo Shi waved his dragon-slaughtering saber in the sky, and continuously chased after those huge dragon evil spirits. Those that had escaped dozens of kilometers away. He flapped his wings and could catch up to them in an extremely short period of time and kill them. Mo Shi, who was hiding underground, hacked his saber at the ground. The saber chi went deep into the ground, and even the evil spirits were cut in half. The giant dragon evil spirits were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was a tragic sight. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were all stunned. In the past, they had only heard of giant dragon evil spirits chasing after humans. Who would have thought that one day, there would be a human holding a huge butcher's knife and chasing after these giant dragon evil spirits on the giant dragon ancient battlefield? However, in the midst of their confusion, someone still reacted. He saw that Mo Shi had already chased after them for dozens of kilometers. He hurriedly shouted to the other disciples in a low voice, "Run!" As he spoke, his right hand had already pressed on the wormhole teleportation device. Seeing this, the other disciples also took out the wormhole teleportation device. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared under their feet. It was the spirit-devouring beast. In their panic, these people did not notice the appearance of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast opened its mouth. Suddenly, dozens of tentacles appeared in its mouth. These tentacles instantly extended and swept over the hands of these people. Hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles extended from its tentacles and wrapped around the wormhole teleportation device in these people's hands. Then, with a sudden tug, it swallowed the wormhole teleportation device into its mouth. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in an instant. These people did not even have time to react. By the time they reacted, the spirit-devouring beast had already jumped hundreds of meters away. These people's expressions changed drastically. They had already seen Mo Shi's teleportation ability before, and their fastest speed was only 1,000 meters per second. This was child's play compared to Mo Shi's teleportation ability. Therefore, the wormhole teleportation device was their only hope if they wanted to escape. However, the spirit-devouring beast had swallowed the wormhole teleportation device. Wasn't this cutting off their escape route? Catch it! A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect yelled. The other disciples of the heavenly gold sect heard this and hurriedly ran forward, trying to catch the spirit-devouring beast. However, although the spirit-devouring beast was not very powerful, it was very good at escaping. It directly burrowed into a hole in the ground and did not come out no matter how much energy they released into the hole. These people saw that Mo Shi was about to kill all the giant dragon evil spirits and became more and more anxious. They even used genetic martial arts to create a huge ravine that was 10 meters wide, 1,000 meters long, and over 20 meters deep in the ground. Even so, they could not find the spirit-devouring beast. What should we do? A disciple of the heavenly gold sect wiped his sweat and asked fearfully. Another disciple of the heavenly gold sect said, "What else can we do? If we don't escape now, when will we? Can we escape? That kid can teleport. It's still better than waiting for death here." However, at this moment, a disciple stopped these people. He was the calmest among the 100 disciples of the heavenly gold sect. He said, "We can't escape at all. Why don't we all join forces and fight that kid to the death?" Someone shook his head and said, "Fight to the death? Didn't you see how terrifying that kid was when he killed the evil spirits? Fight to the death with him? It's like ants fighting to the death with an elephant." "No, it's worse than ants fighting to the death with an elephant." That calm disciple shook his head and said, "From what I saw, that kid didn't seem to have such terrifying combat power when facing our Grand Elder. When the Grand Elder's aura exploded, that kid didn't seem to be able to resist at all. However, when facing these giant dragon evil spirits, his combat power seemed to be off the charts. I'm guessing that the sword in his hand is specially made to restrain the giant dragon evil spirits." After he said that, everyone thought about it and realized that this was indeed the case. At this moment, everyone seemed to see a glimmer of hope. Chapter 423. At that moment, everyone seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. However, this hope was still rather slim to them. If they did this, they might still have a chance of survival. If they did not do this, they would definitely die. "Fight!" a disciple shouted. "Fight him! There are so many of us. I don't believe we can't beat him." That's right. No matter how strong he is, he's only a level 2 desolate hunter. We have so many level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters. Can't we beat him alone? These people gave themselves a boost of adrenaline and started to condense their genetic weapons. The calmest disciple of the heavenly gold sect said, "When he comes over later, we'll all activate our energy weapons at the same time and give him a fatal blow." As they spoke, Mo Shi had already killed all the giant dragon evil spirits. Then, he flapped his black, tattered wings and flew towards the heavenly gold sect disciples. Clearly, he did not intend to give these heavenly gold sect disciples any chance. Hence, the calmest disciple of the heavenly gold sect shouted, "Energy weapon!" At this moment, everyone's genetic weapons glowed red and white and turned into energy weapons. The next moment, everyone's energy weapons shot out red and white light at the same time. Whoosh 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 whoosh. More than 100 red and white light pillars shot towards Mo Shi. Seeing this, Mo Shi teleported and dodged the red and white light pillars. These people changed their direction again, and the red and white light pillars continued to attack Mo Shi. Mo Shi once again teleported and appeared behind all of them. These people turned around again and aimed their energy weapons at Mo Shi. However, when they aimed their energy weapons at Mo Shi this time, they were all stunned. Mo Shi had already disappeared. What appeared in front of them was a giant dragon. This giant dragon was not as huge as the giant dragon evil spirits. It was only 100 meters long. However, this giant dragon was a real giant dragon. Every black scale on its body had a diameter of 3 meters. Under the sunlight, it shone with a metallic luster. The dragon's claws were 5 meters long and shone with a cold light. There were dozens of javelin-like bone spurs on the dragon's head. This made its already ferocious head even more ferocious. A pair of blood-red eyes, so red that it seemed as if blood could drip out. It had a dragon tail that was dozens of meters long, thick and powerful. On its back, there was a triangular ridge that resembled a blade, extending from its neck to the end of its tail. Its most distinctive feature was its pair of wings. This pair of wings with a wingspan of more than 80 meters actually had many holes of various sizes. It was as if he had casually found 2 broken pieces that had not been repaired for a long time and hung them on the wing bones. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had seen Mo Shi disappear, but a huge dragon had appeared. He then looked at the dragon's wings, which were almost identical to Mo Shi's wings except for the size. They were all dumbfounded. That kid had turned into a giant dragon? Could a human become a dragon? Not even the most ridiculous stories they had ever heard were so ridiculous. This was simply inconceivable. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, finally opened his eyes wide and stood up. He had roamed the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud for dozens of years. He had seen a lot of strange things. However, he had never heard of a human turning into a giant dragon. In all the stories, humans were humans, and dragons were dragons. He had never heard of a human becoming a dragon. Speaking of which, this kid could actually become a dragon. No wonder he, a mere level 2 desolate hunter, dared to come to the ancient dragon battlefield alone. It seemed that he had really underestimated him. Previously, no matter how talented he was, Han Jianxing had not put him in his eyes. After all, Han Jianxing himself was a person with great talent. It could be said that in terms of talent he was the ceiling. He had never seen a person with greater talent than him. He had not cultivated for dozens of years, yet he had risen from a level 1 desolate master to a level 2 desolate master. From this, it could be seen how abnormal his talent was. Therefore, no matter what kind of genius he was, they were all bullshit in his eyes. But now, Mo Shi was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was what really surprised him. The moment Mo Shi transformed into a dragon, most of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples were dumbfounded. He even stood there in a daze, staring at the 100-meter-long dragon. The calmest disciple was also a little confused. After all, in the eyes of humans, dragons were synonymous with power. They might not have been able to defeat this kid, but now he had transformed into a dragon. How could they fight? But they had to fight even if they couldn't. Energy weapon! He shouted loudly, waking the rest up. Everyone hurriedly aimed their energy weapons at the dragon. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Hundreds of energy weapons blasted towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi did not dodge. Boom 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 boom. These hundreds of energy weapons blasted onto Mo Shi's body. They kept exploding into balls of fire. Visually, the dragon that Mo Shi had transformed into could no longer be seen. He could only see balls of fire exploding at the place where he had been standing. But even so, these Heavenly Gold sect disciples did not stop. Their energy weapons blasted onto Mo Shi's body, creating new balls of fire. Boom 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 boom. Just like that, the bombardment went on for 3 minutes. The calmest disciple raised his right hand, signaling for everyone to stop. After everyone stopped for more than 10 seconds, they saw a figure slowly emerge from the flames at the spot they had blasted. The 100-meter-long dragon was intact, except for its tattered wings. Everyone subconsciously took a few steps back. With so many of them attacking at the same time, even a level 1 desolate master would not dare to take it head-on. But this dragon did not dodge, and used its body to take on the strongest attacks of over 100 people. The strength of his body was too abnormal. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, shook his head and sighed. What a strong body! In the sky, Missouri Shi gently flapped his wings while secretly rejoicing in his heart. He did not dodge just now because he wanted to test the strength of his bloodthirsty demon dragon body. One had to know that the greatest strength of a dragon was its terrifying body. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon's body could not withstand the energy weapons of these level 7 and 8 desolate masters, it would be too disappointing. Fortunately, the results did not disappoint him. He could feel that the scales of the bloodthirsty demon dragon could withstand any attack below a level 1 desolate master. Not to mention, it had a pair of tattered wings. This pair of wings could also withstand any attack below a level 1 desolate master. Chapter 424. The reason why Mo Shi didn't dodge the attacks of these people was because his scales weren't just for show. His defense was quite strong. Secondly, he had a pair of wings. Although the wings were tattered, they could still withstand any physical and energy attacks below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. With such double insurance, he could naturally try his luck. In Mo Shi's opinion, if a giant dragon could not even withstand the attacks of a mere Desolate Master, his scales should be removed and thrown into the rubbish bin. At this moment, seeing that he was fine, Emo sure opened his mouth wide. A dragon roar came from his throat. Roar! Roar! This dragon roar was intimidating. This made all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples' faces change drastically. Run! At this moment, the calmest disciple could no longer stay calm. With a loud shout, he turned around and fled into the distance. What a joke! So many of them had attacked, but the giant dragon's body had withstood it. If they did not escape now, were they waiting to become its dinner? However, Emo sure did not give them the chance to do so. More than 500 meters away, he opened his huge mouth. Boom! A gust of scorching energy came out of his mouth. Red flame dragon breath. This scorching dragon breath instantly engulfed the ground within a radius of 100 meters. It engulfed all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Ah! No! Save me! The ground had turned into a sea of fire. Screams of the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples could be heard from the sea of fire. But after a short 10 seconds, there were no more screams. At the same time, the string of numbers representing kill points in Emo sure's mind had changed frowny face kill points. 4011000. Looking at the sea of fire on the ground, Emo sure could not help but sigh in his heart. Giant dragons were indeed much stronger than humans. As a level 2 giant dragon, he was much weaker than these humans in terms of level. But with the strength of his body, he could crush these desolate masters who were 5 or 6 levels higher than him. This was the strength of a giant dragon. After killing all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples in one move, his kill points had increased by more than 100. It was a pity that there were too few Sky Gold Sect disciples. If there were more, wouldn't he be able to advance again after one move? However, Emo sure knew from the memories of these people that they were only disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect. There were also more than 100 disciples from the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect. In total, there were more than 300 people. Thinking of this, Emo sure couldn't help but feel excited. Glancing at the grassland below, he flapped his wings and flew toward the entrance of the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon. No matter what secrets or treasures there were in this grassland, they had to be put aside for the time being. To the current Emo sure, there was nothing more valuable than killing points. He flapped his wings and flew forward quickly. He was not running at full speed. Even so, it could still reach over 1,000 meters per second. At the same time in the outside world, in the Heavenly Gold Sect of Cloud State, the Great Elder had already returned to the Heavenly Gold Sect using the wormhole transportation device. He had already found the sect leader and reported what had happened at the ancient dragon battlefield. Sect Master, I've already ordered everyone to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. However, they still haven't returned. It's obvious that they don't have a chance anymore. Almost all the dragon evil spirits have appeared at the ancient dragon battlefield. If they don't return immediately, they won't be able to return anymore. At this point, the Great Elder's voice became lower and lower. The sect master frowned when he heard this. The Heavenly Gold Sect was indeed the most powerful sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. They had more than 300 elite disciples who were level 5 desolate hunters and above. This was a very rich sect. However, more than 200 elite disciples had already died at the ancient dragon battlefield. This was definitely a huge blow to the Heavenly Gold Sect. Great Elder, you are responsible for this. The sect leader of the Heavenly Gold Sect said. The Great Elder looked guilty. Sect leader, it's indeed my fault for not being able to bring them back. I'll accept any punishment from you. However, compared to punishing me, what's more important now is to plan ahead. In my opinion, that kid, Emo sure, is very strange. Although the chances of him surviving in front of thousands of dragon evil spirits aren't high, he still needs to be prepared. We've already formed a deep grudge with him. If he really escapes alive, he'll definitely come to the Heavenly Gold Sect to seek revenge. The Heavenly Gold Sect leader scoffed. It's fine if he doesn't come. However, if he dares to come to the Heavenly Gold Sect, he won't be able to return alive. After the report, the Heavenly Gold Sect leader said, since the ancient dragon battlefield is so dangerous, immediately inform the Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect to withdraw all disciples. We've suffered great losses. We can't let them suffer with us. Yes. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect immediately contacted the Heavenly Water Sect and Heavenly Wood Sect. Soon, At the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield, the Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect leaders who were guarding there received the news. When they saw this, their expressions changed. They didn't expect that after the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect brought more than 100 elite disciples into the ancient dragon battlefield, everyone except the Great Elder was wiped out. Now that the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect had escaped, there was no point for them to guard here. After a simple discussion, the two of them ordered the disciples. All Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples, activate the wormhole transportation device and return. The Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples couldn't wait to return. One must know that the most terrifying thing in the ancient dragon battlefield was the giant dragon evil spirits in the fourth zone. Now that those giant dragon evil spirits had gone crazy, when were they going to leave? Therefore, they all took out the wormhole transportation device. However, at this moment, a roar suddenly came from afar. Roar! Roar! They had heard such a roar many times in the ancient dragon battlefield. Evidently, it was the roar of a dragon. However, in the ancient dragon battlefield, the roar of a dragon would only be heard at night. They had never heard it during the day. When the roar of a dragon was heard, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The roar of a dragon was too oppressive for them. However, this was only secondary. After the roar of a dragon was heard, boom 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 boom, everyone's wormhole teleportation devices exploded one after another. Everyone was startled. The Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect leaders were also shocked. Sound wave attack. That's right. This was Mo Shi's sound wave attack. He already had the skill of a sound wave attack a long time ago. However, as his strength increased, the power of the sound wave attack became less and less impressive. However, in this situation, using the sound wave attack to destroy these people's wormhole transportation devices was pretty good. Chapter 425. Following the dragon's roar, the wormhole teleportation devices of everyone from the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect exploded. Just as everyone was alarmed, someone suddenly pointed to the distant horizon. In the distant sky, a figure was flying over at high speed. At first, it was just a black dot. Soon, the black dot became bigger. Gradually it became bigger and bigger. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was actually a huge dragon. It was not the phantom of a huge dragon evil spirit, but a real huge dragon. A huge dragon with tattered wings. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Huge dragon. Didn't the huge dragons go extinct tens of thousands of years ago? What's going on? Is it an illusion? While everyone was puzzled and frightened, Mo Shi had already flown above them. When everyone saw this 100-meter-long dragon, they felt an inexplicable sense of insignificance. It was as if they were ants in front of this creature. They even had the urge to kneel down and worship it. When the two sect masters saw this, they suppressed the fear in their hearts and shouted to everyone, "I wonder where this huge dragon came from." However, its strength is clearly lower than a Grand Desolate Master. Disciples, don't panic. Let's work together to slay the dragon. When they said the words, slay the dragon, the two sect masters could not help but feel a sense of pride. Since ancient times, huge dragons were the symbol of mystery and power. As for dragon slayers, they were even more admirable. Now, what the two of them were going to do was exactly what the dragon-slaying warriors had done. How could this not make the two of them feel proud? In fact, their feelings were not wrong. After Mo Shi evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he was invincible against anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level just based on his physical strength. However, he had only evolved for a short period of time and was only considered a young dragon. If they were to fight face to face, he would not be a match for a Grand Desolate Master. The two sect masters each took out a weapon. One wielded a saber, while the other wielded a sword. They all looked like highly advanced weapons. On the saber and sword, a fiery red glow appeared. After reaching the Grand Desolate Master level, one could add energy to their weapons to fight. Although using energy could cause large-scale damage, the lethality was not very strong. On the other hand, when energy was added to a weapon, the damage it could inflict on the enemy was extremely terrifying. Hence, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one would have to find a suitable weapon to use. Mo Shi sneered when he saw this. Do you think that I'm afraid of you just because your weapons are equipped with energy? That's right, you're right. However, who didn't have dozens of trump cards? Thinking of this, Mosher's mind moved. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. This figure was actually 2,000 meters long. Such a huge Wei gave these humans a strong sense of oppression. From its silhouette, Wei looked like a giant snake. However, there were 2 lumps on its head. 4 thick and powerful claws, making people shudder. Although dragons had appeared on the flaming continent before, there had never been a Wuxia divine dragon. There wasn't even a legend of the Wuxia dragon god. Therefore, these humans, including the disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect, had never seen such a monster before. Heavens, this! What kind of monster is this? I've never seen a desolate beast like this. The 2 sect masters also had a bad feeling at this moment. In front of this strange creature, they could feel a sense of oppression. It was the sense of oppression when they were obviously not a match for it. Then in the sky the sea dragon clone moved. It suddenly turned around, and its huge tail smashed directly at the 2 sect masters on the ground. Seeing this, the 2 sect masters knew that they couldn't dodge. They could only hurriedly condense an energy light shield in an attempt to resist this guy's tail. Bang! A huge sound was heard. The sea dragon clone's huge tail smashed into the ground. The 2 sect masters were smashed directly into the ground. Only the upper half of their bodies were still above the ground, and the protective light shields on their bodies were directly shattered. Both of their heads and faces were covered in blood. The expressions of all the disciples changed drastically when they saw this. These 2 grand desolate masters were their pillars of support. They were the strongest people here and also their pillar of support. And now, in front of this creature, their pillar of support was smashed to the point of bleeding. How could this not make them panic? Mosher controlled the sea dragon clone and didn't give them the slightest chance to resist. It snaked down from the sky. Its huge claws directly grabbed at the 2 of them. The 2 of them obviously still wanted to resist for a little while. But before they could complete their resistance, the sea dragon clone's huge claws had already caught them. Even the ground above them was torn by this big guy's sharp claws, creating 2 huge ravines that were 1,000 meters long, 100 meters wide, and more than 10 meters deep. As for the 2 of them, under the sea dragon clone's sharp claws, they were directly thrown far away. They flew for a full 2 kilometers before falling to the ground. At this time, the 2 of them no longer had any aura on them. The sea dragon clone's seemingly ordinary claw actually contained the power of lightning. Don't forget that the sea dragon could release electricity. When the electricity hit the 2 of them, dozens of tentacles protruded from the sea dragon clone's claws. Each tentacle pierced deeply into the bodies of the 2 people. It devoured their blood. Therefore, when the 2 of them fell to the ground, they had already become 2 dried corpses. This scene was not detected by Han Jianxing, who was thousands of kilometers away. Otherwise, even he would be surprised. After all, he was only a level 2 grand desolate master. And this creature's level was completely the same as his. And because of the advantage of physical strength, the sea dragon clone's combat strength had already surpassed his. At this time, the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect and the Heavenly Wood sect were all panicking. Even their greatest pillar of support had been killed by this huge creature with a single claw. How could they be any better? Especially in front of this huge creature, they would feel a sense of oppression from the bottom of their hearts. This made them unable to even think of resisting. The only thing they could do now seemed to be to run. So, these 200 people immediately scattered and fled in all directions. At this time, the sea dragon clone did not make any more moves. When the sea dragon clone killed the enemy, Mosher would not get kill points. He would only get kill points when he was in human form or bloodthirsty demon dragon form. So he let the sea dragon clone clean up the 2 grand desolate masters first. He would leave the rest to him. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.